All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our meeting, the projects monitoring meeting today, August 25, 2026, held in Chambers. Remember that this meeting is being recorded and is on Zoom, so people have access to anything we say and do. And of course, it's being recorded as such. So I guess the next thing is I will basically cover the karakia area with settle the spirit, clear the mind, prepare the body to achieve what needs to be achieved. Today we have otherwise everybody in attendance except for Councillor Dinsdale has put in an apology, and Councillor Joyce is going to be on Zoom, but Councillor Dinsdale has an apology. Somebody move in second. Moved, seconded by Councillor Elvin. Thank you. Aye. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Anything, there's nothing as I understand for consideration of late items. No declarations of interest at this stage that I've heard, just in case. Anything there? No. Public excluded items, well, there will be a confidential session at the end of the open session sometime this afternoon. Public forum. So we have today the people from the Omokura Golf Course that are wishing to present to us basically about trying to well, asking us to look at the flooding and water retention areas and how to clear it up. So I'll let them tell us what they wish to tell us. Do be aware that we can't make any decisions at this meeting today, and we will work through from there. They will basically just present everything because I expect everybody will have read the papers, etc., and then open for questions. Please go ahead, Mr. Holyoake.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What we want to present today is about stormwater that's adversely affecting the golf course, basically council-controlled stormwater that floods our golf course. So together, the council and the golf club have constructed a very valuable and excellent asset in the coastal walkway, cycleway, recreational area, pressures reserve, and the golf club. The golf club membership is growing very significantly. The golf course is investing a huge amount of money and effort into improvements. A new clubhouse is just being opened. It's a $4 million investment for the club. We have plans for course improvements, drainage upgrades, and it goes on. But the immediate problem we have is flooding from what we call the Western Drain. It's a drain that runs down from the council developments and the community runs down through the under Kaling Place and out to sea. At times of rainfall, the outflow is restricted and the water backs up and floods the golf course, as you can see in those photographs. So the bridge you can see in the top photograph there is certainly not passable, and of a more difficult concern, because obviously we can't play golf when that's like that. But the lower photograph shows how the stormwater spreads right out across the golf course. This affects playability and ground conditions, so much so that in the last 3 months, for the majority of the time, the area in that photograph that I'm showing you has been closed because we cannot dry the ground out because of the repeating rainfall events. Now, the issue is that growth in Omokura has changed the flows. Instead of having orchards and farms that take up a lot of the water, we've got roads, hard surfaces, and the water now comes down, more of it comes down the drain and faster, and it can only be discharged to sea through this tidal flap gate here. Now, the engineers know all about this, and we all agree that this is a restriction. One of the ways in which to describe it is it's like having upstream where the water passes under the railway line, there are two culverts of 1,200 millimeters diameter. They are big ones. Railway doesn't want it flooding there. But at the end of the line, there is this one 900 millimeter diameter pipe and flap, and can only discharge at low tide. Basically, it is the restriction, and it's like having two lanes of traffic coming down to a single lane, and in the times of congestion, i.e. flooding, the immediate thing is it backs up and delays floods across the golf course. It's an existing problem. We all know about it. The golf course has known about it for years. Council engineers are working on it. We're in constant liaison with the engineers, providing them with information and design data. So we know that this is a foreseeable constraint. And we want it fixed. So the challenge is just an engineering one. And it's not even really an engineering challenge because we all know the answers. The engineers can design an outlet that works along the walkway that the community uses. They have already council designed and installed flap gates that are working very well. So in addition to the western drain, there's also precious reserve drain. Now, when there is a very heavy rainfall, and it is not as often as the other one floods, but water can come down through, stormwater comes down through the pressure reserve, and at times actually runs through the gate. It doesn't respect the road into the golf course. Instead of going out the drain, it just runs into the golf course and across the golf course, once again affecting our things. But that's a fairly simple thing, just a little bun to contain the stormwater to the drain. So what we're asking for from council is support. Your engineers know how to do it. All they really need is the budget and the directive from from the council to go ahead and do this. The community wants it. The current dam has been overtopped on a couple of occasions, so the structure is eroding. There is waratahs with deteriorated safety tape around there to try and keep the people from falling into the hole beside the dam. Not exactly the best look or best safety. So the golf club just wants to make sure that the council knows that we're ready to invest. We have a lot of plans to make things better for the growing community of Mokoroa. I'd just like to close by saying that on Friday, the 21st of August, the new roundabout at Mokoroa was officially opened, and our mayor, James Denyer, said, the roundabout was about enabling the growth and future success of Mokoroa, which is not only the preeminent growth area in our district, but a whole new town for New Zealand. So keeping this sort of recreational space and the jewel in Mokoroa's client open and functional and available to everybody is a very important thing, and we urge the council to put budget allocation as soon as possible to rectify this problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well done, and kept us running well to time. Thank you. Questions? We have, yes, please, councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Holyoake. Prior to, is it Kaimai Views subdivision, prior to that being established, were there any problems with the golf course before that?
Well, there were, but they weren't as regular. So during a very heavy torrential cyclonic waterfall, yes, it would flood. The golf course responded some 15 years ago, 12 years ago, by raising the fairway that we saw as it flooded. We raised it 1 metre. So what is everybody knows, and James Abraham's report basically says that what is happening is that the flows in the stream are increasing. So the flap gate that was designed and installed some 30 years ago, in fact, I can't even find the date at which it was built and installed, may have been adequate then when we had more ground absorption through orchards and farms. But now, as the hard pan surface area is increasing, the flows are just continuing to go up. And I guess with global warming, we're getting heavier rainfall events. But I mean, even just last week, there was a 70 millimetres of rain in one day and the fairway flooded. Now, 70 millimetres of rain in one day is not unusual. We've had that, I think, 4 or 5 times this year, and every time the golf course floods. So it's not a one-off flood event, not the 100-year flood event or even the 10-year flood event. Already we've had 4 or 5 events this year. So it's just it's the nature of the beast that we've got increasing flows, and they are spilling out across the golf course and affecting it, and we have to respond.
Thank you.
Okay, we now have Deputy Mayor Murray Benge.
Thank you, Mr. Holyoke, for coming in this morning. And you are right, it is a jewel in the crown of Western Bay, not only of Omokoroa. I would like to ask if the culvert that you want improved, will that be able to cope with the amount of water that's coming down? You've said it tunnels into a very narrow, small culvert.
Well, I believe yes, but I can't design that. And that's why the council used Tieki Engineering to design the floodgates that are along the walkway, the ones that you walk over, and the other drains successfully discharged to the ocean. This drain that we're asking for updated is just built 30 or 40 years prior to different standards. The floodgates weren't available then. We know a lot more about it all. So your engineers and your consultants know exactly how to do this sort of thing. So it's just a matter of modernising and increasing the capacity of this drain to sea.
And tell me, sir, you said that the club was prepared to work with council staff. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, already we are recording all the rain events where we go out there and photograph it, we measure water levels, we look at the rainfall, and all that information is being presented and given to your engineers, and they thank me very much for it because not many other people are prepared to go out during the middle of a cyclone and actually do all these flows, because that's when the real information needs. And I'm sure that all that information will be just exactly what a consultant or your council engineers need to not only justify the upgrade, but to provide to the designers of the upgrade.
Am I right in thinking that with the dry season coming up, that this is the time for action?
Well, the sooner the better. It just needs to be done. We've had 2 months this year where one hole's been closed and we can't do it. And one of our responses from the golf club side, and we're not expecting the council to do this, but we're looking at the feasibility of raising the fairway so that we don't flood across the fairway. But that requires bringing in 1,000 truckloads of soil. We'll need council support for the resource consents to do that, traffic, noise and disruption, and the resource consents, and with everything and with the regional council's role uncertain, we'd certainly need the council support to do that. But the golf clubs are ready to work with the council. We're continuing to work with the council, and we always have worked with the council. But what we're asking for is we're saying, you engineers know the problem, we know the problem, but we can't do anything about it until the council and your councillors provide them with the budget to actually undertake the project and do it.
So as the chairman said, we can't make a decision.
Yeah, sure.
It's referred to staff and report back. So, Mr. Chairman, through you, can I ask Mr. Singh, how long will it take you to come back to us?
Deputy Mayor, are you asking us to include this as part of your LTP deliberations in terms of funding request?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, so we could potentially put together an IOP that discusses this issue and brings it forward for you to deliberate through the LTP. And I believe that IOPs are coming through in September or October for council deliberation. I will say that this is quite late in the piece, so it won't necessarily be our best IOP, but we'll try our best to put something together and bring it to you.
Thank you. I just acknowledge that Councillor Joyce is online now and move to the Mayor.
Morning. Thank you for your presentation. I wanted to ask how long the course floods for. Now you mentioned that it's out of action because it's sodden ground, I guess, but how long does the water actually stick around for?
I'm not sure if I've completely follow your question, but what happens is that sure, there's a lot of rain falls on the course and we need to get it to the drain. But the problem, and that affects the course. And so the course often does close for 1 or 2 days during a very heavy rain event. But the problem is that this back flooding of this water across the golf course then totally saturates the soil. And therefore it takes a lot longer to dry out. And if we take machinery, mowers or anything onto that, we just leave big ruts. And so that has resulted in currently, I think the 5th fairway is closed right now. Yeah. And it has been basically since the 11th of June, we first closed it. Then there was a June rain event. We opened it briefly sometime at the end of July, during July. It's now closed again because we can't take vehicles on that fairway.
So my point though is if you get a 70 mil in a day, like
Yes.
recently, and you showed pictures of it flooded across the course, how long does that water stick around for? Is that a day or is that longer or was it
About 2 days.
2 days? Okay.
But the residual effect, though, is the saturated fairway, which even though that rainfall was a couple of weeks ago, we still can't go on it. So that's one of the reasons why the golf course wants to lift the fairway. But it's pointless almost lifting the fairway until we can get the current restriction, which is causing the worst of the flooding, upgraded to what is a current engineering practice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for your presentation. I just have a couple of quick questions. First one was, it looks quite severe looking on page 3 at the flooding pictures you've shown us. When were those photos taken?
This year, and I think they were in April.
Okay.
Either March or April, but we have had rain events that have been similar to that. January, February, March, April, and June, and then just last week.
And the second question then is, are there still large amounts of the course, like the full course, that you're still able to use, or is the whole thing as saturated as what that looks like?
The other areas of the course, and during heavy rain events, we close the course for 1 day, maybe 2 days. And then once the rain stopped, we can reopen the course. And so just the rest of the course is, right now, the rest of the course is playable, but this fairway is not. We are a floodplain.
Yeah.
We acknowledge that. And so during a very heavy 10-year event, the course will flood and the golf course will be closed. So for this asset, this community asset, it is about how do we recover from a flood event as fast as possible. And that's to get the water out to sea on the low tide as fast as possible. And at the moment, the purpose of this presentation is to show that the Western Drain has got a very much a restricted outlet and is really causing the backlog and the backs up. The other drains where there are the newer floodgates, they don't have that same problem. They are designed in such a way that they cannot backflood, they do not backflood onto the course. And that's, engineers have done a good job there. And we've watched them through these events and they're doing a good job. In fact, one of the features of the ones along the seawall is that in a very, very heavy 10-year or 100-year one, the floodgates can be over top. The water will just flow over the top of the floodgates. On this particular one, I showed you the photo with the one thing right down at the bottom of the dam. So when the floods are severe and it overtops that, it has to actually overtops the dam. overtops the walkway, and then in the resulting process is that it erodes the structure of the dam. At the moment, the dam is, I would say, about 60 or 70% secure. I mean, we know what happened when in Mount Maunganui when the erosion and signs were showing. It's not as, hopefully it will never be as have such disastrous consequences, but essentially already you can see the eroding of the dam structure, and it could fail in a huge event if another huge event came along. And so the new design that the councils use very successfully on the walkway, the flood water is actually overtop the floodgates without eroding the structure of the thing. So it can cope with any flow.
Thank you for that. And just one last follow-up. Is there because I don't play golf myself,
Yep.
Is there large amounts of people in the club that actually would use the golf course during heavy rain?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, councillor Daly.
Mr. Holyoake, just the bund and the walkway around the outside, that was a project that was done about 5 or 6 years ago,
Yes.
at a cost of about $600,000, I think, to mitigate the inundation onto the golf course, wasn't it? So do you think they could have perhaps gone a bit further with that project, or was the problem you're talking about now that's just come to light because of all the development? That's what you're saying?
No, well, the inundation of the golf course that happened in 2018 when the sea broke over the golf course and rolled right up to Kaleen Place, and that prompted the seawall, and now it's a fabulous community asset. That addressed the foreshore of the Tauranga Harbour. The project did not proceed round to that other drain, so that drain was not included. In hindsight, you're probably right that that outlet should have been upgraded to the similar standard that the outlets are on the harbour. But there's only so much budget, and they didn't do it then. Now we're saying this is the major problem that the golf course is faced with, the immediate problem.
Yeah, I think Precious Reserve was underwater in that 2018 flood as well, wasn't it?
Yes, well, the council has lifted the land levels there,
Yeah.
and created the drain that runs between the Precious Reserve and the golf course, and there are flap gates, new flap gates at the discharge to the harbour. But even then, the amount of water that came down there is now occasionally flows into the golf course. And
So raising Precious Reserve might not have been
Pardon?
good for raising the height of Precious Reserve might not have been good for the golf course either. But no, sorry, my question is, have you done any community consultation? I notice Aomokaro is very good at conducting community consultation about issues like this to see how much support there would be to put more money into this particular problem.
good question, I guess. But I guess as far as formal public community consultation, no. But everybody, we have 1,000 members at the golf club, near enough. Everybody who's been involved in the board and management and committee work, I don't think I've never talked to a single person that doesn't agree that 30-year-old flapgate is the biggest cause of our problems that needs upgrading. So that's quite a section. I think Makaroa's got about 5,800, and we've got nearly 1,000 members. And then you take all their families, and I see the number of people that walk the walkway, and we talk to them all the time. But we haven't done a formal community survey.
Actually, there was one last thing. Do you allow public to wander freely over the golf course? I mean, we've got the walkway, obviously, but are people allowed to generally just meander?
No, that would be unsafe for them. And so, no, but the walkway is open to everybody, and you'll see everything from young children to grandmas, grandpas, mobility scooters, lots and lots of cyclists and people coming in from outside the district and supporting all of the things Aomokaro has. And everyone loves it. Bird watchers. It's just a huge number of people using that thing, and they all use that. And that's another problem that we would probably have to talk about in a different setting. about the people and interaction with people and safety and ball strike and that. But that's another meeting for another day.
Thank you there. Councillor Beach.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Holyoake. Great presentation. What I see here is you've got two problems, not one. The first problem obviously is the rain, which causes flooding. The second one, which I think is the other problem, is you're trying to get water out through a culvert that is restricted by tidal movements.
Yes.
So for 12 hours of the day, you're not going to get water moving out of that culvert because of the tidal gate being closed. So to me, and it doesn't always rain when the tide is out. So you've got some big issues there.
Yes.
From what I see, though, it is an engineering issue that needs to be resolved. So
Yes.
again, it's not just about the flooding, it's also about the outlet of where that water goes. So
Yeah.
I enjoy your presentation. I'm sure the engineers here will take everything on board.
Yeah, I'm very
That's your
confident.
question.
I'm very confident the engineers can make a better job than the one that was done 35 years ago with different design conditions and that, and so that I'm sure that a much better, and we acknowledge that the tidal flap gate will always be a restriction. But at the moment, it's a small hole and can't cope with big flows. And so any improvement, any restructuring, anything that I'm sure the engineers design will be a vast improvement. And then when we know what the effects of that are, we can raise our fairways and do our drainage accordingly. But at the moment, we're like, what's the point of doing any drainage work when we've got this huge restriction which we can't control?
Thank
My
you.
question's answered, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Okay. Councillor Alvin.
Thanks for the presentation, Mr. Holly. How long have you been keeping records for? I'm just trying to get a view on, is this just normal in that floods occur from time to time this happens, or is there a sort of demonstrable link between the change of the overland flow path through to as arising out of adjacent developments? And I just guess in making any assessment there, we need to have and take account of the changes that may have occurred surrounding you. So I'm trying to get a feel as to whether this is just heavy rainfall in certain circumstances or other man-made interferences elsewhere in Omakara have contributed to it.
Yes, I guess the easiest answer for that is that James Abraham, the council engineer, he did a report when he was a board member at the golf club about 3 or 4 years ago. And that summarises the flows, because James is a stormwater engineer and understands the issues a lot more fully than I do. But his report, I commend you all to reviewing that. And that very clearly outlines that the flows are increasing and will increase further. And so the golf club is going to experience more problems in the future. And as part of that response, I personally talked and discussed this with James Abraham myself. And from 2025, I realised that what I needed to do was to start taking records of what actually happened on the golf course. So I started doing that in 2025, and I continued to do that. The latest one was just last week, and I provided a number of these reports to the council engineers, and they're very grateful for them because they give them the information that they need to design, understand the problem, and also to request budget allocation. And that's the key thing I want to say to you is all the council engineers know the problem, accept the problem, and they know what to do about it. They just need budget allocation to let them get on with their job.
Thanks for that.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Holyoake, and support is there for coming today. I actually have to admit that you've submitted a really good proposal and presentation and a lot of technical data, which has just been alluded to. Well done. It will be, a paper will come through to us,
Yes.
as you've heard, and we will move from there. But thank you very much for today, and may you continue to have fun on the golf course.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, councillors. Mayor.
Right. Councillors, we now move to item number, sorry, I've jumped a page, flipped it over. Okay, to the minutes of our meeting June 9. It's item number 10.1 on pages 6 to 18. Do I have a mover and a seconder for us? Okay, the minutes are being moved by Councillor Ray and seconded by Councillor Coxhead. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye, carried. Well, any dissenter? No? Thank you. Then we move to item 11.1, pages 19 to 457, and that is the Katikati Industrial Growth Area. Quite a big item here. So we have Anna Lee there to present to us and tell us about it, and we'll move from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. This report in front of you is essentially council seeking confirmation for a funding approach for the Katikati Industrial Growth Area, specifically in consideration of the $1.2 million overhang that has been identified in the report that from Oricon that was attached to our report. Oricon identified or they have refined in that report the infrastructure requirements, staging, delivering, sequencing and the funding assumptions. But in that model, there is a $1.2 million overhang, and we are asking council today whether you would consider essentially stepping in as a banker to cover that 1.2 million to enable infrastructure or to enable the whole project to open up and to commence essentially. We're not asking for any decisions on the $30 million figure that's been identified to develop the whole Katikati industrial area. Those decisions will be made through the LTP and business cases that will be come to you guys. It's more whether council would consider that it is worthwhile opening up that 26 hectares of potential economic development, employment opportunities with that $1.2 million.
So we have questions starting with the Mayor.
Thank you. Can you just be crystal clear what the $1 to $1.2 million overhang represents? I mean, is that the cost to us? Will it get paid back, or is that the risk if things don't go so well? So just be really clear about what that represents.
My understanding of the banker role is that that cost will get paid back through, development contributions or developer costs, but through the whole process, securing land, infrastructure. There are certain things that will have to happen before we can get all that sequencing and staging in place. It takes time to secure land. It takes time to build infrastructure. But there might be some core infrastructure that needs to go in first. But the idea is that through all the financial considerations or mechanisms for how we can recover the money, that money will come back to council, and that will all be considered by council through the LTP process.
So we should get the money back, and we should get the interest cost associated with it as well?
Not sure about that.
I'll just open it to Mr. Singh.
Yeah. So council, the $1.2 million is an at-risk investment that if you were to approve this, that you're making. So there's no guarantee that you would recoup the entire $1.2 million. It is dependent on developer contributions and how the development progresses. What I will say is that, like we said in the paper, this was an in-principle decision that council has already made. So council has already made an in-principle decision that you would be banker for $1.2 million to progress this development should a developer pick it up as an incentive for a developer to take this on and do this. The request of staff that council made when you made that in-principle decision was to go away and confirm the numbers. And what Annalie and the team have done is confirm the numbers and have come back to confirm that it is $1.2 million.
Mayor still has further.
I just want to tie down is it's, if things go okay, we'll get the money back, but it's, if it all goes badly, we won't. Is that kind of the?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Coxhead.
Yeah, I think, you know, this is probably a development that Katikati really needs and wants, I'm sure. I'm a little unclear on a couple of things. It could go up to 1.8 million according to the paper. And like the mayor has asked the questions around that I was interested in. But you mentioned 30 million. Are we up for 30 million in terms of infrastructure, or is that on the developer through Finco's?
No, that's on the developer through Finco's or whatever other,
levies?
yeah.
So what's Quayside's part in this?
Well, Quayside was originally interested in developing Katikati. They actually pointed it out that there was an overhang that needed to be funded to entice is probably not the right word, but to get developers on board to want to be interested in developing Katikati's industrial area.
So we call it an overhang. I'd call it a shortfall. What? I haven't heard this term overhang used here before ever. Oh, I found that quite.
I don't think it's a shortfall as such. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Murray Bench.
Have you worked with developers through this as well?
No, well, we worked with Quayside in the past. They were quite interested. The idea is to get the ball rolling, so to speak, to see which developers would potentially be interested in developing Katikati industrial area.
So tell me, have you spoken with finance to make sure that we can afford to do this? I'll look at what's needed in other parts of the district, which is significant. The road, for example, in Te Puke, and we've got a number of major projects. And have we balanced up this view as being the top priority?
That's why it will also be considered through the LTP process. That's when decisions will be made as to what projects take preference, what projects can go forward, and all of those decisions will come to council to be made.
So tell me, would it be appropriate for the finance to be referred to the Audit and Risk Committee?
No, Deputy Mayor, the financials of the decision that you make today will have to go through the LTP process so that this can then be balanced against other investment that you could potentially make, and you could then balance off and decide which one you actually want to invest in. The reason that it's coming to PNM is because the resolution that was passed when you made the in-principle decision was very explicit that we needed to come back to PNM to confirm the number so that you could make a formal decision on it. And that's what we're doing today. If you make this decision today, it will then form part of the LTP submission.
Welcome to Councillor Joyce. Your hand is up there. I hope your voice is strong and able to.
The voice is fine. I might cough in the middle of it. Sorry about that. Some of my questions have been answered, but so thank you for that. With Quayside, are they still interested? Because I thought they pulled back to focus on Rangiuru.
Correct. They have pulled back. They are no longer interested here, but I do believe that there are developers that are interested. We have had property owners come in to talk to us about whether this was a formal decision that council had made, expressing that whilst Quayside have pulled out, there are other potential developers that may be interested, and they just wanted some security from council on council's position on this.
Right. I would like an answer to the mayor's question, not necessarily today, but when this comes to LTP on interest costs. I think if we're advancing finance in any form, there needs to be a return on that in return for the risk. So I'll be interested, please, in getting more on the interest costs. And can we also please get information on potential rates income from this block? So we have an idea of what the long-term return would be for ratepayers from developing this block as part of that LTP process. One thing I'm interested in, having looked right through it, is the staging. Are we talking about, I know there's some stuff that needs to be done up front, but is this something that could be staged over time? And is this commitment that being asked for also going to be over time rather than all at once? And I have one other question after that.
Yeah, it will be staged over time. It's not going to happen all at once.
Certainly, talking to the landowners, they don't want to happen all at once because that would flood the market from their point of view. My other question is regarding the Noble Farm that's recently been sold and is apparently being put into kiwi fruit. Now that is a major part of the infrastructure, with the structure plan showing a large chunk of the farm being used for a large roundabout. So how does that affect things if that land is no longer available for the medium long term? I know it's stage 3.
I think that would all depend on whether the project actually goes through LTP, because we will then have to consider potentially purchasing the land for infrastructure.
But
I think there's still a few, but I think there's still a few hurdles for us to cross before we get there.
Right. So can I just make sure I understand, like others, I'm struggling with the term overhang. So if this development goes ahead and everybody pays their contributions, whether we call them FinCos, BevCos or development levies, depending on when it is, would that then come out even? I'm not sure what the 1.2 to 1.8 million represents.
Correct, Councillor Joyce. So the $1.2 million is council's decision that it would be willing to bank $1.2 million for a developer to be able to kickstart the development off. Obviously, this is subject to any developer agreements that we would need to enter into. So the question around interest and what sort of interest council would be able to get from a developer, how that repayments would occur back to council, all of that will actually be subject to a developer agreement that we are yet to negotiate and land, because no developer has come and approached us and said that they want to take this opportunity. So these are some questions that we are unable to answer at this point because they're subject to future negotiations with developers.
Sure. So why have we used, if this is the money we'd need to put in to kickstart the project, why are we calling it an overhang is, I guess, the question. It just seems a very confusing way of phrasing it. But yeah, okay, I'll talk to it when we come to it.
Thank you, Councillor Joyce. The other, yes, I've got others there. The other comment I need to make is also on that land is the stormwater mitigation ponds, which it's going to create a few other issues as well if this project gets split up. Councillor Ray.
So obviously I'm not a developer and I'm not a structural plan expert. Just looking on page 25, where it talks about once it's refined, that further engagements with people may be required. So could we then, if we put them, like if we agreed to be the banker, could we end up in a situation where affected landowners, general public or tangata whenua actually have significant pushback on it and tell us to back off and not continue to develop the area?
I think through the LTP process, that all gets covered off anyway. We put it all through a public consultation. So there will still be opportunity for all of that to be dealt with.
But will the money still remain, or is that considered spent and lesson learned type of thing?
I think we'll put it through the LTP process first before we spend any money.
Okay.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Murray Bench.
If
a developer who has bought the Noble property wishes to do something different, will these decisions exclude that opportunity? For example, if they could do residential and part of it, would that be excluded by this decision?
No, no. I mean, we would deal with the Katikati infrastructure growth area like we do with all our other structure plans. I mean, we do have in other structure plans, we do have projects where we are planning to do certain things on certain land, which hasn't occurred yet. So I think that the positive is that that would be within council's control, in that we will be the coordinator. We will not leave it up just to the developers. And with council being the coordinator and being in control, we can ensure that money isn't spent where it doesn't need to be spent, or that we're essentially doing double work where a developer might have already done something and then council decides to do something. We'll make sure that it's all staged and coordinated within our structure plan.
Mr. Chairman, have you got the power to make sure that with the development, that the road to Tauranga, which the Noble property borders, can actually be landscaped in such a way that any industrial land does not be detrimental to Katikati? For example, in Auckland, the industrial areas can be quite beautifully landscaped. Have we got the ability to do that too here?
Well, I think so. And the reason I say that, I'll let Brad respond to, but I know with the power station that's going to be built by PowerCo in Mokoroa Road, there is plans of making sure that it's not a sore thumb that stands out and takes away from the amenity of the area. But I'll let Brad respond to that more fully.
I think, Deputy Mayor, at any point we can do stuff like that. The implications around too much of that could be pushing prices up. So you tend to push development to a point where development becomes really expensive and growth becomes expensive, and that translates to the actual housing price. So it is a balancing act of beautification versus ensuring that it's still affordable for the final homeowner.
Sir, while you're here, could I just say thank you for the super opening that you organised for a Mokoroa roundabout.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Councillor Alvin.
Yeah, thanks. I'm a bit like Rodney. I'm struggling to get my head around the exercise. My initial view is that we weren't giving them any cash. We were simply carrying a liability that they weren't going to fund. So there's no cash outlay for the council. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not lending them any money.
No.
We are just not recovering what we're entitled to.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a totally different proposition. I do struggle with the prospect that we would not get our money back, because the developer would not be doing this to run at a loss, considering what we're putting on the table is chicken feed overall. So I can't see how it's possible to lose on this, except if our investment is upfront, in that we are incurring a significant amount of cost before the developer decides to finally proceed. And that's different. Yeah. So I'm just trying to understand, are we funding the developer's application so they can determine the right to proceed, or are we deferring some payments that we would have otherwise been entitled to further on down the track? Because I'm not interested in whether it's related to FinCos or anything else. If we're a mezzanine funder, we should get paid before the developer gets his profit out. So I'm just trying to understand the process, really.
Yeah. So you're right. It is a deferred payment, And so the payment comes in later. I think the risk that I'm talking to is there's negotiation that would need to happen with that developer in terms of how that financial transaction occurs. So how long we're holding that deferred payment for is yet to be decided. And then we walk into these things with best of intentions. I can't guarantee that the development will go exactly the way we planned it and exactly the way we negotiated. So things could turn south. So whilst we're saying that there's a deferred payment, that payment may never actually eventuate to council. And so there is a risk that you're holding on here. A suggestion for councillors to consider is if you want to time bound this decision to encourage the development community to take advantage of this while council has made the decision, that's an appropriate decision to make as well. And you could put an amendment into the paper to time bound it to try and encourage something to happen within a specific time period.
Just to follow, I'm not averse to the idea. I'm just confused as to exactly what it really looks like. I mean, if we are looking to carry some funding we would otherwise get back sometime in the future if we're delaying it, and that enables a project like this to proceed, then I'm all in favour of that, because it would seem to me if we do our homework right, our risk is quite small, and if we don't get our money back, then it seems to me the developers would have gone broke as well. So I think that risk is pretty minimal. I don't know many developers out there that are generally look to move into anything with the intention of earning a profit. So I think our risk would be quite small.
Your risk would be quite small. The fundamental risk that you're carrying here is through your LTP. This is $1.2 million you can't spend on something else. So it is $1.2 million that you're basically holding for a period of time for this development that you wouldn't necessarily be able to allocate for other things in terms of other investment that you wanted to make.
Yeah, I can't understand that, I guess, and that's simple in that space, and they don't. But to me, we're not borrowing anything. It's actually an asset, not a liability. I can't understand that. So it's actually an asset. It's a credit on our balance sheet. So it shouldn't affect and we're not actually having to go. It's not going to cost the ratepayer any money, except maybe a delay in getting paid. God almighty, I mean, we have shrinkage from time to time. Naturally, I'm just having difficulty understanding.
Actually, you're right, Graham. Yeah, actually, you're right. Yeah.
Councillor Joyce.
Can I just ask that these financial details be clarified? I mean, all we're asking today, right, is that we investigate this further. So, you know, the fact that there's some unusual phrasing and, you know, it could be seen as an asset, it could be seen as a contingent liability, but we're not actually, from what I understand, being asked to put any money in. I think we do need clarity from the finance team or whoever, that when we come to this through the LTP, we actually have a clear idea of what we're being asked to commit and what the nature would be on either our cash flow, which sounds like nil, or our balance sheet. Because at the moment it's very much an engineering report and a planning report, and that's fine. But there's the key part to this, the council, is the financial issues, and they're a little bit underdone just because of the nature of the report. I mean, a lot of detail in other areas.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it was a model that was put together, and as part of the model, it was understood that it wouldn't stack up unless that $1.2 million overhang, by a lack of a better word, was considered.
Happy to move, Chairman, if you're ready to go.
Thank you, Councillor Joyce. We will do that in a moment. Councillor Daly.
Just really to the question of there are other developers interested. Quayside, I assume, have they paid for the Oricon report, or was that Western Bay that paid for the Oricon report?
Western Bay paid for the report.
Okay, and so the scale of interest from other developers, is that well known, or is that just hearsay, or do we have some really firm interest in this proposal? How does it, where do we sit with the smart growth, commercial, industrial centres strategy at the moment?
I'm not aware of any specific interest at the time. I think what we currently have in our structure plan as far as the Katikati industrial area goes is very light on information. And I think if we can come up with something more robust, and we've got particular figures, and we can show, as per the report, where there might be constraints, as you mentioned, regarding stormwater issues, that will get more interest from developers. But there's certainly a lot of interest around, and there has been, from my understanding, for a long time, to have a industrial area within Katikati, which might then unlock any of the other smart growth projects or aspirations.
Sorry, can you just clarify, Rodney talked about this noble land that was being developed into kiwi fruit, and that is potentially on the site of an interchange or new roundabout, is that correct? Or?
I don't have personal knowledge of that. We would have to go and investigate that a little bit further and come back to you.
Okay, councillors, I just want to be sure now everybody understands exactly what this is. This is actually allowing for a development, potentially development, to proceed at some point in the future, that it is a sum of money around $1.2 million. That isn't necessarily cash up front. It is being drawn on, but it will be allocated out of an LTP funding that we presumably will approve at some point, and then maybe drawn on. I think that relatively lays it out as pretty simple. So it's cash in the LTP tied up specifically to this if requested. Sorry. Please.
Thank you, Chairman. I haven't seen this exact scenario, so just kind of working through what I've heard here. If it is a deferred payment, basically what you're looking at is a vendor finance type scenario. So we should get money for the development under whatever conditions, but we are delaying receiving that payment. That will not impact your LTP funding options. It is not an opportunity cost. It is not debt set aside for any purpose to facilitate this. It is simply saying that we could have and or should have charged. We will hold that against the developer for a future time. So I do not believe this will impact your options in the LTP process. It will just need to be given consideration and tracking from a finance perspective, should this development go ahead. So hopefully that clarifies, but happy to answer the question because I see this as an important matter.
Thank you for that. So anything further before I move to Councillor Joyce? Councillor Elvin.
I did have one issue, and I thought we had a general comment out. This is of low significance, and I just wondered whether consideration had been given to the precedent element of this. So it does seem to me that it's an interesting factor for us to bear in mind, that if we're going to stake this developer, to what extent are we prepared to stake other developers as well? So maybe the importance is a little higher than just low.
Yeah, I mean, we put in low significance because we were not asking council to make a decision on the actual development of Katikati. We're not asking for $30 million investment, or to say, yes, let's go ahead and invest it, because the LTP process is still there for the project to go through, including the 1.2 million that we were talking about in the report, hence why it was put down as a low significance. It's not the end of the road kind of decision today. It still needs to go through quite a few processes.
I also think, Councillor Alvin, that the precedent has already been set by this council. We have engaged into similar sorts of things like Rangiuru Business Park and that sort of thing, where we help development kick off and get started. So it's not the first time that the council's done this.
Mayor Denyer.
I was going to say there's no real precedent at all, actually, because there's no expectation from developers. This is sort of thing we do normally. That this is to solve one-off unusual situations and to facilitate. So I don't think it's a precedent-setting thing, but Brad's just covered that. But I did want, before Mr. Chairman, you go to Councillor Joyce to move something, I did want to ask whether Councillor Joyce wanted to consider a time limit for this, and whether that's something that he wishes to move, or whether I should move an amendment, or think about that before he moves.
Before we
Councillor
do
Joyce.
that, can we just ask staff, do we need that at this point, or should that be at the next stage when we look at it in the LTP?
I think we should look at that through the LTP process. That's why we've got the LTP.
If that's all right with the
Okay,
mayor?
if we're comfy with
That's
that,
fine.
so you move, Councillor Joyce,
Yes,
items
please.
through the whole
1 through
resolution,
6. Yep.
seconded by the mayor.
Can I speak to it?
Any debate?
Can I
Deputy Mayor
open?
Murray Bench?
Point of order, I think
Oh,
Councillor Joyce wanted to speak.
Sorry, Rodney. Councillor Joyce, please
Yeah,
speak.
sorry, this is hard when I'm remote, but I'm probably contagious, so it's a good idea, I think, in this case. This is something that has not being driven from within council. This is something that is being driven by the landowners, one of whom is enthusiastically, shall we say, nibbling away at the development already, in his own way. So the landowners want to develop this. They are the drivers behind this. They thought they were going to get across the line with Quayside's deep pockets, but Quayside decided they had enough going on in Rangiuru. So, we are where we are. There's a lot of, to use a bad pun, water to get stored in stormwater ponds before this even goes ahead. This is just, we're being asked to investigate this further. The landowners would have to commit to it. They'd have to find a developer that would commit to it. And so, even if it goes through the LTP process at the council, the private sector has to step up to this. Otherwise, it won't happen. So I'm keen to see this investigated further, but I'm not going to pretend this is it's a major part of the proposed development, but the landowners and whoever they partner with is the other half that is yet to be finalised. So this is our step towards that. The structure plan, as you can see from the papers, has been worked on for at least the last 12 years. It's been a hard nut to crack because so much of the work needs to be done up front. But I'm keen for us to at least show support and investigate what's possible. And then the hard decisions, I say, we will need the private sector to step up and support this before it goes anywhere.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Murray Bench.
I think Katikati needs this. We need an industrial area that can provide employment for people, and it has been slow. And I know from one of the men who owns land out there, it's hard work trying to motivate and to get things moving. If we can, in fact, stimulate that by the decisions and the report that has been done, I think we will serve Katikati well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, councillors, we have the motion moved and seconded. There seems to be no further debate. So can I ask all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary? Carried. Thank you very much. Move to item number, oh dear, here we go, I'm out of order here. Sorry there, this would be 11.2, I guess. 11.2 on pages 458 to 464, the Omokara Road Urbanisation Stage 2 project. Again, Annalee.
Again, yes, still in the hot seat. This report relates to the forecast overspent of $3.58 million on the Omokoroa Urbanisation Stage 2 project, which is currently under construction. Completion date is forecasted at the end of October this year. While there were extensive planning and investigation undertaken, there were issues that were discovered while construction occurred. The increase is not attributable to just one single issue. There were a combination of issues, quantity remeasurement, poorer than anticipated ground levels, which has driven the cost up. What the message we would like to relay is, first of all, we wanted to let you know that we are forecasting an overspend, but we can cover that overspend within our wider Omokoroa program due to the savings that we incurred on the State Highway 2 roundabout and Stage 1 projects. $38 million were invested by NIV, which used to be Kāinga Ora, and then $5 million from NZTA, which NZTA, in terms of our agreement with them, are to pay once the roundabout is completed. They haven't paid the $5 million yet because we've got a final surface to asphalt in October around the roundabout. But once that is completed, they will pay over that $5 million. It's been ring fenced for our project. So we will be using, the 3.58 million will come from that $5 million contribution to cover the deficit.
Thank you. Questions? Can the Mayor Dinia, please?
2 questions for me, Annalee or Brad. Are NZTA okay with the transfer of the purpose of the money?
Yes.
They are? Okay.
Yes.
And what is the risk of it going further over budget?
I don't foresee any other further risks. The biggest risks that occurred was while we built the retaining wall and the roundabout at Flounders Ave, which both have now been completed.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Councillor Coxhead.
How did the two figures end up being exactly the same?
Excuse me?
So the cost run over and the amount left over from Stage 1, they're exactly the same amount. How did that come about?
Oh, no, it's not exactly the same amount. What I'm saying is that the $5 million that we will be receiving from NZTA, we didn't need to spend on the State Highway 2 roundabout and the Stage 1 projects because
so
we
that's
came in
$5 million, that one. So the money left over is $5 million and you need 3.58, correct?
That's correct.
So what happens with the balance? Pardon? Okay. So we're allowed to keep it?
Yes.
I think so. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, so that money is a contribution
Yes.
from NZTA. We are getting the full 5 million. So just because we use 3.58 to cover this overspend doesn't mean that the remaining balance goes back to NZTA. That will go into our reserve account. It's different to FAR.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Alvin.
So is the suggestion that we've come under budget by 5 million, or is that just a contingency, that 5? I'm just concerned that, one, that NZTA won't have any issue with that, and 2, to the Mayor's comment that we're not kicking this can down the road and we're going to end up with a deficit further out, that's all.
No, so the NZTA, $5 million from NZTA is a contribution. So it was a cash contribution, regardless of what the program came in at. It would have been a $5 million contribution towards it. So that $5 million is expected soon because the roundabout is now completed, the State Highway 2 roundabout. And so we're just wanting to dip into that $5 million, which was tagged to go into reserves anyway.
Deputy Mayor.
What lessons have we learnt from the 3.58 million overrun if NZTA were not coming in, it would look very poor. And what lessons have we learned?
I think before I answer the lessons question, it was quite a big project with a lot of complexity, and we actually encountered the same issue on the stage 1 project as did some other developers regarding poor subgrade, where the ground conditions weren't great. We did do some testing to test the strength of the ground, but we couldn't do any further extensive testing than what we had done, because if we were to, you can't test every square meter of the road. But also, I think if we were to have undertaken more extensive testing, it would have outweighed the cost of that would have outweighed the benefit of building the road. In terms of lessons, I thought about it myself. We could have probably have done a peer review of the design within council, because the biggest spend is at $2 million for the quantity assessment. But in reality, the engineer puts an estimate together of how much they think it's going to cost, how much the material is going to cost, but only then when construction occurs, obviously we then pay for the actual costs, and you can prepare for that as much as you possibly can, but once you're on the ground and start breaking ground, you might encounter that the site conditions or poor subgrade or utility clashes were there, or uneven ground, which we most definitely experienced in Mokoroa, might become more apparent that wasn't there at tender stage or when the estimate was put together. But I think if I can take one thing away from this, is that we would probably engage the contractor in a bit earlier before work even starts, so that we can go through it together to ensure that we actually have that costing correct, because the contractors on the ground are a lot more aware of construction issues that can occur than an engineer.
It's just, Mr. Chairman, it's not a good look, and we get criticised all the time that local government and central government can't build roads economically, and so you'll do that differently next time?
Yes, and as far as the poor subgrade goes, I think it's important to note that we wanted to deliver a project that is that's going with a road that's going to last the test of time, and that takes more money, costs more money, rather than going to it cheaply and kicking the can down the road and making it harder for council in 5-10 years' time if the road fails.
Thank you for that, Annalie. Basically, yes, it is concerning. I have to agree with the mayor, deputy mayor on that front, that we've obviously used all the contingency, plus there's a need further. And maybe we're lucky, but we have that funding from the 5 million available, which is really great. So that's cool. I think really what we're doing here is talking around something which you've got very little choice, councillors. It's your decision is, do we do this or don't we? And I ask for somebody to put forward a motion somewhere here and we proceed. So you're happy to move through 1 through 4? I have a mover, seconder. Councillor Alvin. Any debate? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? That is I will now move, we'll try to get this one through before morning tea, and it's the Spencer Ave West culvert upgrade. It's item 11.3 and it's pages 465 and on there. Thank you, Callum. You're ready.
Good morning. You probably remember we discussed the Spencer Avenue culvert
issues and options paper that was presented as part of the development of the annual plan. At that time, the committee directed that staff develop a business case and present that to council within 4 months. We've now developed that business case, and the report provides a copy of the business case and summarises the key takeaways from the business case, which I'm happy to go through now, or happy to take the report as read and go straight to questions. Really depends whether you want to hear the key takeaways or whether you're happy to go straight to questions. I'm happy to go straight to questions. Mayor Denyer.
Yeah, a couple from me. Firstly, the report talks about not meeting our level of service with the culvert, and I just want to understand a little bit more what that means, because I mean, clearly, if it's presumably that means we're not meeting our level of service at the moment, and to sort of criticise it for improvement seems a bit odd. So, what would our level of service be, and why isn't this meeting it?
It does meet our minimum level of service. It doesn't meet the level of service for that classification of road. So that's the I guess the answer to your question. So it does provide a minimum level of service, but not the level of service that would be appropriate for that road classification.
Because I mean, if it wasn't meeting our level of service, then I wonder why it was left to the community board to take this forward. You know, that should have been something that would have been coming up for us. So.
Sorry, there was a report taken to council a number of years ago, and council did make a decision on it. Apologies, I should have probably provided a copy of that decision with the report, but that's an oversight that's on me. So apologies for that.
Okay, and my second question, I'd just like you to walk you or Brad to walk through the cost benefit analysis. It was quite hard to work out what was going on in parts of that. The calculations weren't obvious, and there was difference between expected monetized benefit once upgrades in place and the low case annual avoided loss. And I didn't understand the difference between those and what they meant. So that's on page 481. Perhaps you can just explain that for us.
Okay, so it was the expected monetized benefits and?
So there's a table there, expected monetized benefit, and then there's the low case annual avoidance loss. And they're different, they're not the same thing. They seem to be different things, and I just want to understand what they were. So the expected monetized benefit is 32,000 a year, and the low case annual avoided loss is 20,000.
Which page are you on, Mr. Mayor? Sorry. 481. Yes, okay. So the annual avoided loss is basically a proxy that is used to determine the avoided cost of doing this work. So if you do this work, there'll be a cost that you avoid in terms of having to do any retrospective work should flooding occur. So that's the expected monetized benefits. And then the next one you were talking about was the annual avoided cost.
Well, so the assumption says expected monetized benefit, and then there's the low case annual avoided loss.
Yeah. So the low case annual avoided cost is basically a sensitivity analysis that I ran across it to understand whether, from an annual perspective, depending on these events are not going to occur every single year. They will be occurring on the odd occasion. So the sensitivity case was looking at the lowest case of if for annual avoided loss in terms of the resilience of doing this thing. So if we weren't having this incident happening every single year, would it still stack up from a financial perspective? So it's taking a more conservative approach to say, if this event doesn't happen every single year, if it does happen over every third year, every fourth year, does it still stack up from a monetized perspective or not?
I think I'll let someone else ask a question. I might have a follow up, but thank you.
Hey, we have Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Callum. So from 2025 and then to April 2026, I was a part of the Makatū Community Board at the time, and they allocated 200,000 as the report says. But then it talks about not actually, like it more or less makes out in the report that $17,000 has been spent somewhere prior to finding out that the cost actually blew out a lot higher than expected. So can you explain what that money was spent on, or is that still sitting in the board's account?
So 17,000 would have been professional services cost to basically just finish off the design, deal with consent issues, consent application, get that across to Bay Point Regional Council, and probably do a bit of updated cost estimation work. I can't give you a full breakdown off the top of my head, but basically it's probably what we spent just to bring the project up to date and get it ready, construction ready.
And so that 17's come out in the previous financial year, therefore that's why it says that it'll be a little bit less. Because it talks about 182,000 total coming from the board account, because I guess that 17's already come out in the previous financial year. Would that be right? So it's not the full 200,000 to come out of the board's roading account?
Yeah, I mean, if they've committed to spend 200,000, then there's already been a $17,000 spend, then they would only be committing 183,000 to construction.
Thank you. And last question, if I can, Sue. So recommendation 3, if that was to proceed, does that include the shared pathway or does it not? Because it talks about it in the business case, and there's sort of option 1, option 2, option 3.
Option 3 does not deliver the shared path extension requested by the board. That's identified as one of the disadvantages.
Oh, so in order to proceed with that, the shared pathway, we would have to then bring the total costing up by 550,000 on top of the 368.
Point of order, I think there's confusion here. I think the 550 includes the pathway.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he just said that.
Well,
it didn't.
option 2 includes the pathway.
You've got options there, councillor Ray.
What? It's not there.
Okay.
In the recommendation.
Page 474.
Mr. Singh will just fill you in there.
Just to come back to your question, Mr. Mayor, apologies. It's been a while since I worked on this business case. So I had to flounder a little bit and try and remember what I did. So the expected monetized benefit, $32,000 a year, is what I expect we will save every year from doing this sort of work. I then did a sensitivity analysis to say, if it wasn't $32,000 a year, if it was $20,000 a year, would the benefits still stack up? If you then trail down to page 483, there is a cost benefit analysis that I did there, and the cost benefit analysis at $32,000 is 1.7. So it's a positive BCR. And even if you say that we're only going to save $20,000 a year, the BCR is still positive. It's 1.1. So it was just a bit of sensitivity analysis to say, is $32,000, am I making too broad an assumption here? If I reduce that, does it still stack up? So it was just
that's really helpful. Thank you, Brad. But one perhaps then just to finally clarify, what the 32,000 or 20,000, whichever one you go with, what's cost is that avoiding? Is it repairing roads? Is it someone's flooded house? What is it?
Yeah, it's predominantly around the avoided cost of repairs. It is not to do with private property. So I've not necessarily taken into account private property because that's not council's obligation.
Okay, so it could actually be higher if you're including people. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Daly.
Oh, sorry, I didn't have any questions.
Okay, then Councillor Joyce.
So I'm just intrigued by, Callum, by your comment that this doesn't bring things up to a level of service. And when I look at the options analysis, we look at the project and some lesser options or a lesser option, but have we actually looked at what would normally be our level of service and what the cost is to bring it up to the level of service? Because that would normally be one of the options, surely.
No, we haven't done that, no.
I think Councillor Joyce, if you recall, when we discussed this through the annual plan, one of our positions at the time as staff was that this would not resolve the issue 100%, that this investment would not resolve the issue 100%. So when I drafted the business case, it was a very different business case to how I would normally draft it, because we were aware that this wasn't going to resolve the problem 100%. The business case was drafted that even though it's not resolving the problem 100%, does it still make financial sense to proceed with the limited benefit that this investment provides? And the business case shows that economically it still makes sense to provide this benefit, even though it's not fully 100% our full level of service.
Do we know how far off it is from the level of service? Because I mean, if we spend $500,000 now, and then 3 years' time we come back and say, oh, actually, no, we should have done the whole hog, that's not an effective use of ratepayers' money. So how far away are we from the level of service?
If you look at option one, which suggests that if council don't want to fund a project, they could defer it to the long-term plan. Deferring it to the long-term plan would be the best way to get those questions answered. So we could then allocate a budget to investigating other options and looking at other options to see if they're, whether we can actually achieve a higher level of service and what the cost would be to achieve that level of service.
Yeah, I will just say, though, that was not the instruction that was given to us by council. Council asked us to business case this option to see if this option was a viable solution, which is what we've done. We weren't asked to actually look at, and I think Callum and I did mention that we anticipate that a bridge would be required in order to meet our full level of service. And that was not what council asked us to do. It was to specifically test this option.
I will go to, I have here Councillor Ray, Councillor Elvin and Councillor Beach, and Deputy Mayor is to come on the end of that.
Sorry, so I just wanted to make a point here. I don't actually appreciate being interrupted before, because what I had asked was exactly what's on this paper. I was talking about the current recommendation 3, where we're being asked to approve the budget, and you're talking about options that pertain to a meeting that's already occurred. So I was asking, is the current recommendation 3 that we're passing today include the footpath? And then you said no. So I don't appreciate being interrupted in that way, but my understanding is yes, it does.
No, Callum. So the recommendation is actually to defer this project to the long-term plan and make a decision on it via the long-term plan. So we're not actually recommending that we proceed with the project either with or without a shared path.
That's not what it says. That's not what it says, sir. That was the previous meeting that we already had on this matter.
So if you look at page 470, that it contains the recommendation, which is option 1.
465, recommendation 3 says approves the budget.
Okay, we'll move to.
I think councillors, where we're getting a bit confused here is that there are 2 papers, one on top of each other.
Yes.
The first paper is the correct paper, which is what you're referring to, Councillor Ray. And then there's a follow-up paper, which is the paper from the annual plan that recommends deferring it to the long-term plan.
Right, so we have Councillor Elvin.
The apologies, that caught me out as well. So what I've just told you is just complete nonsense. You're absolutely right. So apologies for that.
Councillor Elvin.
And I know I'm a bit addled and I get like that the more of these meetings I come to, but my understanding is the issue with the level of service to our required level of service was prohibitive in terms of cost. And that was our major reason for shifting down to these alternatives. And the second thing is, and this was a response to the needs of the people of Makatu to do something that was pragmatic, meaningful, and reasonably quick. If that's ever possible in an organisation like this, but that's for another day. My question then is, if we were to do this work, is that helpful if we have to upgrade to do some more? Or is it a waste of time if we have to? Just to Councillor Joyce's question, I think, Rodney, you asked something similar. Is this going to be, doing this, is it going to be helpful if we have to do something else? Or are we going to have to rip it out and start again if we decide to do something else? If I put it in my very, very precise engineering terms.
Well, the problem with Makatu Road is it's approximately 1 metre above sea level. So there's a limit to what you can do in Makatu Road to prevent flooding. If the tide wants to come in, it's going to come in unless you build a very long, very expensive, wall to stop the water coming over the top of the road. So it's not so much the cost of implementing. It's not so much the cost of implementing a solution that meets the level of service specified in the development code. It's more whether it's technically feasible, and then whether the cost is something that council can afford. I mean, given the situation there, I think it's a case of achieving what you can rather than what is desirable.
So what you're saying is what my mother used to say to me on many occasions: you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. So we've got a current circumstance we've got to deal with. We're now looking at the best and most pragmatic way of dealing with that. And that's why we've adopted a process which is below our standard level of service. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because we're actually making a decision. And just to follow on to that too, and I do want to just follow on from the Mayor's questions around value. I think there's significant value to our Makatu residents over and above our direct costs. So while we might be saving 30-odd thousand a year, I think there's significant social benefit and economic benefit for a bunch of people out there that are not necessarily high net worth. Can I say that, Laura, without creating any offence? So, so I think there's significant benefit all round. And
okay, I now have Councillor Beach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually don't have any questions, but I'm happy to move the recommendations when we finish beating this to death, because we already did an hour and a half of it on our last meeting. So I'm happy to put the recommendations through when you're ready, and I'm happy to talk upon that then. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll move to Deputy Mayor Murray Bench. Get a chance, mate.
Could I ask Callum, would a bigger culvert have helped? I've note here that it says improved performance, but will not meet council's adopted levels of service and does not fully resolve the flooding issue. I accept what you're saying about being just above sea level, but the size of the culvert, is that big enough?
The size of the culvert's limited by the height of the road above sea level. So that's why we're putting in a second culvert as opposed to putting in a bigger culvert, because if the culvert's too big, then it would be sitting above the level of the road. So the question is more really, should we put in additional culverts? And that's a good question. I don't have the answer, but if we go with this option, that doesn't preclude us from putting additional culverts in down the line on a slightly different location on Makatu Road. So we decided at a later date that we wanted to try and increase the capacity. We could do so by adding more culverts rather than increasing the size of the culverts that are there or maybe installed.
So the question of the culvert that's going in is big enough, but it could take more culverts. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it doesn't meet council's level of service, but it does meet council's desired level of service. It does meet a minimum level of service, but not the desired level of service. And if we wanted to try and achieve the desired level of service, we would have to do further investigation as to whether adding additional culverts would achieve that level, that desired level of service that you know is specified in the development code. But whether it's technically feasible and whether council could actually afford the cost of implementing a greater solution is, unfortunately, I can't answer that at the moment.
I understand. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Councillor Ray has been quite passionate about this culvert. I'm sure she will have morning tea for us all when it's opened.
Right, now we have Councillor Daly has somehow managed to become the last speaker, which is not common. So, Councillor Daly.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I did have a previous question, and that was actually the question that Rodney asked. But my question is it fair to say that we're not meeting the level of service? There were no plans to try and address the deficiencies in the level of service, because as noted on page 480, it is out of scope because of comprehensive township-wide flood protection for Makatu, long-term managed retreat or relocation options for dwellings across the wider floodplain. Is the main problem here that it was simply consigned to the too hard basket and there never was an asset management plan to address this issue? And this is actually doing something that does go some way towards mitigation, even though it's not the ideal solution and it won't ever address the planned level of service. I mean, the agreed level of service across our district.
I don't think it's fair to say that there wasn't plans to do something about it. It's probably more accurate to say that there wasn't a budget to do something with it until Makatu Community Board committed the budget to, you know, to see the project through. There has been, you know, plans being developed as long as I've been at council, you know, possibly before that. So it's been more of an issue of funding rather than, you know, a lack of desire to see it through.
And it's clear that the funding required would be just absolutely astronomical to achieve what was, you know, desired maybe.
Well, it would come back down to another business case whether you would actually achieve, you know, the benefits that you're looking for in the long term, and without going through a business case process and looking at different options, then, you know, unfortunately we can't see it at the moment.
Okay, we do have another speaker, Councillor Coxhead.
I don't really have a question. I just didn't want Councillor Daly to be last again. I do think though, Laura, probably you would like to second this? Yeah.
I do already have a mover then and a seconder. So Councillor Beach has moved. Councillor Ray is seconding this. I must say, just I guess a simple way of summing this up, it may not meet the absolute level of service we want, but it is an attempt to improve the situation we've got. And I think we've got to consider that as part of what this is about. And there may be more work in the future, but this is going to hopefully alleviate a lot of issues throughout the year in general situation. So I'm very pleased that we, at long last, have got a mover and seconder, and I now open it up to any other debate. Councillor Beach, you wish to speak?
I'd just like to speak on the recommendations and obviously enforcing number 3, that it does include the extension of the footpath. That is a must. I'm going to show my age a little bit here. And 15 years ago was when this was submitted into council, and I was on the community board then, 15 years ago. 12 years ago, we got a price of $80,000 to complete this culvert. $40,000 was coming from regional council, which only left a $40,000 debt for Western Bay. Here we are 12 years later, and we're talking about a $550,000 project, which meets bare minimum requirements. Yes, I dearly love a bridge. I would love a big box culvert and a bridge to Makatu, absolutely, and no expenses spared. But unfortunately, we're not in that economic environment to be allowed that to happen. This is the number one issue in Makatu. It was brought and raised by the community board chair of today, stating that this is a need, not a want. cannot be put into the LTP. This needs to be addressed immediately and done yesterday. With all the development that's happened in the highland of Makatu, this is the drain hole that needs to be fixed right now. So the community board has put skin in the game by offering $200,000 towards the project. I know of no other community boards that would probably even contemplate doing that. So this is how important it is to the area. So yes, Mr. Chair, I fully support these recommendations and I would love to see it happen yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Beach. Any further speakers? Councillor Ray.
Just briefly and in the, essence of time. So I thank you, Callum and Brad, for the business case and the work that's been done here. I am a little bit similar to Shane and a little bit disappointed that it's taken this long, but that's nobody's fault as such, not anybody around this table. It is, as Councillor Alvin mentioned, going to be a significant contribution to Makatu, not only for the people who live right there next to the drain, but as Shane mentioned as well, it is the sort of end all point for most of the drainage in Makatu, especially now with the widening of Walsam Road North. A lot more water will funnel down there and end up through there. So I'm sure Colin, who lives right there next to it, will be very much appreciated of this. And as I said, I was part of the committee at the time who put the 200,000 towards it. And also, like Shane mentioned, it's not typical for a community board to actually have to do something like that. But that is how much we valued doing something for the stormwater. So absolutely in favour. Thank you, sir.
Any further comments, or do you wish to speak again?
I think all has been said, Mr. Chair.
Okay, sorry. Okay, councillor Daly.
Look, I'll be very brief. I can't help.
Point of order, does that advisor apply? And they can't speak?
Yeah, no, okay. Yes, I did ask him.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So
you.
that is fair comment.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's the chairman's fault.
Yes, it is. Correct. I try to be too accommodating at times. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we have a mover and a seconder. The motion is in. Well, I offered the right of reply and it has gone through that point.
I did indicate, and I thought you nodded that I could speak.
Councillor Daly.
Can I just, what have we got to
Look,
lose here?
for the sake of
I mean, I'm a local councillor. This is a significant issue. Can I speak?
Oh, I didn't say anything. Sorry. You wish to speak? I'll say it again. Please, promptly.
I just want to note the significant expectation difference between what we heard in this morning's public forum about an Omakara golf course stormwater issue and sort of expectations and indications of support for something of that nature when we've struggled to get something like this Makatu culvert over the line for so many years.
Correct, and very, very good point. It was one I was going to make. Okay, the motion is there, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary? Carried. We will stop for a break for tea. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. Sorry, we're a bit late. We got waylaid. Right, we move on to page 486. It's item 11.4. And it's a Te Parawa road development temporary connection to the Omokura wastewater transfer line. And it looks like, James, you're the man in the hot seat.
Morning, Council. Today I'm here presenting the proposed connection to the Omokura wastewater transfer line. So Kaingamaha, who's a non-for-profit housing developer, has approached us back in May to seek approval to connect to the Omokura wastewater transfer line within Bethlehem. Their site is at 23 Te Paeroa Road. What they're proposing is an initial stage of 50 residential units with a further 150 as part of their second stage. The connection is proposed to be temporary until 2032, so approximately 6 years. At that point, TCC have planned infrastructure which they will be able to connect to along Carmichael Road. At the moment, that infrastructure isn't available for Kaingamaha to connect, which is why they've approached Western Bay to connect to the nearby wastewater line. It basically sums up the report, and I'll take it as read and take any questions.
Councillor Coxon.
James, I realise this question is probably out of scope, but what road or roads are they going to exit from the development from onto, I should say?
Yeah, my understanding is Te Paeroa Road. So that's the
Up to the
road of
supermarket.
the Bethlehem Birthing Centre. Also, just the point to note is they've mentioned their development would look somewhat similar to the one that's opposite the Birthing Centre at the moment, near the Gull petrol station that's there.
They're going to be flats, is it?
Yes, yeah,
Oh.
units.
Units. Well, I
Units,
had a
like
look on their page.
multi-story units.
Yes. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just one clarification or to help. It talks about a maximum limit of 200 residential units, and then later on it talks about the approximately 200 units. So if we were minded to agree to this, and the resolution says we agree to 200 units, the maximum of 200 units connecting, and then they happen to build 205 or something. Is there flexibility to accommodate that?
Their ability to connect would be based on council's decision today. So if it's set at 200, we would hold it at 200.
Yeah.
Vivian. Deputy Mayor Murray Bench.
We have multi-storied accommodation, social housing on one side of the road. Paeroa Road, is it called? And then we're going to have another massive amount of social housing, multi-storied on the other side of the road. In planning terms, you don't put people all in one social area. I think it is very, very bad form. It's not fair to the people who live there. It's not fair to anybody. And it should be much more related to, for example, social housing should be part of the main area of housing. And clumping them all together is an anti-social environment waiting to happen. I feel very uncomfortable about this, and I think the social housing on
Have
the
we
other
got a
side.
question there? Sorry, Deputy Mayor. It's just I think that's heading more into your debate later, but have you got a question? No, we can.
You're
work
quite
to-
right.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor.
James, what's the maximum available capacity if we added another 200? Oh, no, we're talking about 50 connections really, aren't we? Yeah, not too, although it could drag on, couldn't it?
Yeah, we're talking in principle 200 connections.
Yeah,
They've stated that
okay.
Their first stage is 50 and their second stage would be 150. I guess it depends on the timing on when that second stage were to come on versus or compared to when the Tauranga City Council infrastructure is available to connect in 2032.
Yeah, it could drag on. So that's an issue potentially. So in terms of extra capacity beyond an extra 200 connections, and let's say our stage 2 at Omokoroa started to kick off, how would that impact our district?
Yeah, it's a good question. So generally when we talk about capacity of the Omokoroa transfer main, we're really talking about the ability of the pump to push wastewater through that line. At the point where this is connecting to, it's a gravity section, so it's already come up over the hill and it's dropping down into Bethlehem, and so the flows from there wouldn't be this instantaneous flow. And so it's not really directly comparable when we're saying capacity of the Omokoroa pumping system versus this. And so the additional capacity, while it is taking up some, would be very minor. And we've considered it an extremely low risk considering that it is temporary. But I suppose if it were to become permanent, then that's your 200 lots that you might not realize in Omokoroa. Which is why we've put in that decision that this is a temporary connection only.
So who's paying for this? Is it our ratepayers or do they pay rates that we are able to have a benefit from?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's not something that I've covered. And suppose a funding mechanism is something that council will need to consider, or something that staff could come back to. I would point out though that we generally collect a Omokoroa transfer connection charge when typical connections do connect on, and then what our operational fees are is we pay a volumetric rate to Tauranga City Council for them to treat that wastewater. So I imagine we wouldn't need to be paying that volumetric rate for those additional lots, and so that would be null and void. And so it's whether or not we put a connection charge onto
Of what sort of amount would that be?
Or off the top of my head, I'm not too sure. Sorry.
It's just about $4,500 per household.
Social housing development, that's a lot of money, isn't it?
That's the charge that we have in our fees and charges.
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Do we know what the zoning is for the area and what is allowed to be built there?
No, I'm not. Sorry, not aware.
Do you know who owns the land?
No, I'm not aware. Sorry.
Yep, Mayor Denyer.
Well, first question, has this development been consented yet?
This hasn't been consented. No.
Okay, but I'm conscious that this isn't a consent hearing, and some of the questions coming are a little bit around, whether it should be built. And frankly, that's not our decision, although I acknowledge that people might have particular views on it. My question though is, do you have an indication of when spades will go in the ground on this one? Assuming it is consented, of course, because there's a staging table on page 493. So the first 50 units are delivered in August 29, and then the other ones, or stage 2 is another 150 in August 32. So are they looking to kick off pretty well straight away, or what's your view?
Yeah, my understanding was looking to kick off this construction season, so end of this year, noting that this paper had been deferred just because of full agendas previously. So they were looking for a decision quite quickly. And then and that's all, sorry. Oh, just on the point on consenting, I suppose the consenting authority would be Tauranga City Council, but they wouldn't have an ability to obviously approve a connection to Western Bay's asset.
Yeah, no, I just in terms of, people talk about traffic and other conditions which really aren't what we're considering today. So, but no, I understand. So by the year end and for this year's construction season, basically. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Daly.
James, I've finding your comment about the gravity fall from Bethlehem to the Chapel Street wastewater treatment plant interesting. Traditionally, what is the constraint on the Omokoro pipeline? Is it pumping capacity? Is it volumetric capacity of the, based on the diameter of the pipe? And would pumping on the downhill gravity side assist the flow to Bethlehem from Omokoro?
So when we talk about capacity, it's the instantaneous, it's the ability for the pump to pump a certain volume instantaneously. And then you compare that compared to what we would expect in, say, a wet weather period where you've got wet weather might coincide with peak wastewater volume. So at night when people are showering and doing their dishes and everything else, you get a high volume of wastewater coming through. If that happens to coincide with high rainfall, you would get additional peak flow, which seeps into the network. And then it's the ability of the pump to be able to keep up with that volume that's coming through. And so that's typically what we're talking about with capacity. And so it's the ability for the pump to push through, not necessarily, I guess, the pipe that's there. The pipe obviously does have a constraint to it, but you can up the size of your pump, which is planned within our L2P at the moment, to push more through that pipe. So it's a little bit different to gravity, where you might imagine that flow will be coming through in slugs as that pump ramps up and turns off and ramps up and turns off. Whereas gravity is just, whenever it flushes, it's just gradually moving through. So it's a different concept in terms of capacity.
So, you know, what percentage of capacity are we currently at? I mean, there's a population figure, but in terms of actual physical capacity based on peak flows?
Yeah, we're at less than half. I think we're at 5.5. Like if we put it down to a population equivalent, I think we're at 5,500 roughly in Omokoro at the moment. We can get up to 12,000 with that planned pump upgrade that I've discussed. So yeah, just under half.
Sorry, just last one. What year is that pump upgrade planned?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'll have to check.
Any further questions? Mayor Denyer.
I was going to move, but not the recommendations which are there. So I was going to move recommendation 1 and 2, and then instead of recommendation 3, I'll have another one and a further recommendation 4. So a new recommendation 3, that this decision is deferred until asset transfer principles for the Water Services Organisation are agreed with TTC. And then recommendation 4, that the Mayor writes to TTC and the developer explaining the decision.
We have a seconder, the Deputy Mayor. Right here, any speakers to the, well, would the Mayor like to speak on this first?
I think it probably deserves a little bit of explanation. So that we, our council has tried to negotiate the shareholders agreement for the Water Services Organisation, and part of that is around asset transfer principles. And so far, TCC is unwilling to accept that they should not withhold water assets to force non-water funding from us. And that is an important principle for us. And I think this resolution would send a strong message about our intention along those lines. And I welcome further discussion with Tauranga City Council about that.
Thank you. Margaret Murray-Bench, Deputy.
I support the Mayor in this move. I think it's really important that we have honourable discussions with our council partners and an open and honest, and they're not behaving that way at the moment. And it's important that they come to the table and perform as local government would expect them to perform, and make sure that they are willing partners and honourable partners in the process that we work with. So I feel very strongly, Mr. Chairman. But apart from that, on the social issues, and I've got no right to comment on this, but I do believe in Australia, in America, in London, we know what tenement buildings have done to social fabric. And you know that unless you have open spaces
Point of order,
and
Chairman.
lots.
Relevance?
Yes, I'd just like to express my opinion to TCC about what they are doing. And this is the logical time to actually do so, sir. So I hope that they have got their social understanding of what they're actually doing in this environment. It's not good enough.
Councillor Coxhead.
Well, I'm certainly not keen on holding up someone's development at an extra cost to them, potentially as developers, knowing how tight margins can be at the moment as well. However, once again, I can't even say it's Tauranga Council. I have to say it's Mayor Mahi Drysdale is dictating the terms to this council, and I'm not having a bar of it. I am sick and tired of their behaviour, and this is not something that we would normally even consider doing, but we have no options at this point because of the way we are being treated by that council, and particularly Mayor Mahi Drysdale.
Further speakers? Councillor Daly.
I think it's clear we've established that capacity is not an issue in this case, and timing is not really an issue. It's all about the principle that has been so eloquently described by the previous three speakers. But more, not sure if eloquent was the word for Tracy's language, but I fully support it.
Further speakers? No, just beforehand, I also, oh, sorry. Okay. Councillor Joyce.
Yeah, I understand this approach, and I'm sure it'll be carried today. I am concerned that at a time when we need housing, that we may end up delaying much needing houses. This shows that the border issue goes both ways. We should be looking after each other, these two local authorities, for as long as there are two local authorities. And I fully understand why this council is uncomfortable. But I'm also uncomfortable that we're basically taking the low road, the same as our neighbours. We are saying to them, we'll do to you what you're doing to us. And I'm not sure that's a very particularly moral high ground to take. So I'll probably abstain on this, because while I understand the reasoning, I don't necessarily agree with the idea that they should withhold assets because of border issues. And here we are withholding assets because of border issues, and I'm uncomfortable with that.
Thank you. It looks like otherwise it would be the closing. Oh, Councillor Alvin, sorry.
I'm deeply disappointed. I'm deeply disappointed with the approach of TCC in this regard. I have a very long bed, so I can sleep straight in it, and I want to continue to be able to do that. So I've got huge sympathy for the resolution that's on the table, but I am with Councillor Joyce that I will be abstaining from this, because I just, yeah, for the same reasons he's expressed. I think that, I honestly don't want to drop to that level. It's a long way down into the depths of the precious reserve toilet outfall, and I don't really want to go there.
Okay, well, I myself also am quite disappointed that it's come to this here. I actually, when going through the agenda, etc., was quite comfy to I guess, take the high ground and feel that we were supporting our fellow council across the border there. But unfortunately, there seems to be an ongoing issue that we are not able to get an undertaking to play a game where the assets going into the water company should be 100% as is ours, and that we go in as partners totally in that field. So I'm looking at this motion and that the mayor has put forward, and I basically am more than happy to actually support this. So I will be voting in its favour, and we will now hand over to the mayor for his right of reply.
Yeah, thank you. I do want to build on some other comments around the table that this is not about being anti-development. I absolutely support this development and the developer doing it, and it's for social housing, which makes it even more poignant that we should be able to get on and do it. The solution is not difficult. It really isn't. My phone's on. I'll accept a phone call from Mahi and we'll sign the agreement tomorrow if he likes. And you would only contemplate withholding water assets for non-water infrastructure costs for all the wrong reasons. And I'm disappointed that this simple decision couldn't be, or simple agreement couldn't be reached. So yeah, I'll be supporting this.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion before us, and basically we're taking items 1 and 2 as per the agenda, and then we have new 3 and 4. The new 3 is the Projects Monitoring Committee defers the decision until the asset principles for the Water Services Organisation are agreed to with Tauranga City Council. And 4 is the Mayor writes to the Tauranga City Council and the developer explaining the decision. All clear on what that is? Okay, so I will put the motions. Oh, James and Deputy Mayor. So I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. 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 To the contrary? And there are
2 abstentions.
2.
Please record.
Okay.
Yep.
Basically, then I declare the motion carried. And yes, we record the 2 abstentions. Thank you. Right. Now we move on to the last item on our open agenda. It is page 499, item 11.5, and it is the outcome of Precious Reserve community consultation for the public toilet. Can I just clarify that that's consultation? I thought it was basically a survey, not proper consultation as such.
Through the chair, we were instructed in April through the workshop by elected members to go back out to the community to reconsult on the Precious Family Reserve toilets. So we just went on based on instruction.
Thank you. Right, well, please proceed.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll take the report as read, as Kylie just said, that we've been out to the community and consulted via the mechanism of a survey, and Kylie will explain a bit more about that process shortly. But just to say that, so this report, as it's out, headlines or report topic says, is that it's bringing back the consultation from the public consultation we had through the 28th of May to 28th of June 26. So it's just bringing you back that data, and that data is to be considered in conjunction with all of the other reports that this committee has received over the years, I have to say. So there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that councillors have had access to, and that the community through this process had access to in the consultation process to help inform their decision making. as that will ultimately help inform your decision making today. So we, as staff, we're just seeking to have some clear direction on where to from here.
Thank you. Councillor Coxie.
In the survey, why do we mention the cost? Isn't this just a question of, do we want it there? Do we want it moved? Because my observation is the minute we mention cost, it's something that people go, no, we don't want to pay it. Fluoride tap, case in point, $65,000 fluoride tap. Oh no, we're not wasting that kind of money. So why can't we just leave the cost out of it and just ask the simple question, do you want it here or not?
Brad?
Councillors, the reason why the cost is mentioned is because that was the instruction that councillors provided us when we last brought this paper to you a few months back. These exact same recommendations were in front of you, and you asked us to go out to the community and put forward these 3 recommendations into the community and get their feedback on that. So that was what you requested us to do. We brought these questions back to council through a workshop to get feedback on the questions that we were asking. And these questions were approved by council through that workshop process as well.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So, can I just be updated on the situation with the external review that was contemplated, or the internal review? At the last meeting, it did seem we get a bit tangled up about some of these processes, and there was a discussion that we might either source an external review at some considerable cost, or alternatively, we would do an internal review. I'm really conscious of the fact that that, in the words of some of the staff, that this really wasn't our best work, and I think it's really important that we have that I understand where that process is at.
I can take that one as well, Councillor Alvin. So the external review, councillors made a decision that you would prefer that we'd undertook an internal review because of the exorbitant cost of the external review. I've been undertaking that internal review myself. I'm probably 90% of the way through that review, and that review is almost complete, and it will be presented back to council through an Audit, Risk and Finance Committee meeting. The reason why the review has not been completed is because this process is still underway, and part of what happens here today would also form part of that review process.
Just to follow up on that, the one thing that I think is of concern around that process is some of the queries that have been raised about the deficiency of our process would likely be addressed in that review, and may well be influential in some of the decisions we make today, which makes that a bit difficult. So I understand the position, but it's, I don't know what other way it could have been done, but it is a little unhelpful really when we're making a decision perhaps on principle today.
I think that what I can tell you at a very high level of the review is that the review has, up until this point, my observation is that there are deficiencies across the board that this is pointed out, both within the staff as well as at the council table, as well as with the community. And I think that there's almost a perfect storm that has occurred here. There's a lot of lessons to be learned from this process. And I think that review, when it comes back to council, I've taken a gloves off approach in terms of that review, having not been part of this process through the years that it's come to this table. So I can tell you that there's lots of lessons that both staff and council can broadly take from this review.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Murray Benge.
I'm just curious. One of the things I could never understand is that we put this toilet from Island View into Precious Reserve. What was the cost of that, Peter? Do you pick it up?
The, the costs, the overall cost of installing that toilet to date, I think in a previous report was $106,000.
Does that include the transferring of it?
Correct, it include a super clean internal and external, a heavy stainless steel polish over the whole system. It also included a whole repaint. The only thing that we didn't do at that time, which is a lesson in hindsight, was update the electronics, but those electronics have subsequently been updated and have the latest and greatest in there. So that's, so that's the toilet's up to speed and some as best it can be for its age and condition, and would have another at least 25 to 30 years of life left in it, given its age profile.
Councillor Beach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just trying to convert my statement into a question. I will find one eventually. I found the summary relatively interesting reading, and I did read every one of them, especially with the 80% that were in favour of leaving it where it was. And following on from Councillor Coxhead's comment about the money thing, and when you started reading a lot of those comments, it was all about the money. It was not about it's in the right position. It was all about saving money, or you could spend that money elsewhere, My question basically is irrelevant to that. It's more to do with you've got a sum of 50K of the removal of the toilet and replacement. I would consider the removal of the toilet would be significantly less than the 50,000, because you're saying it's also that 50,000 is involving a replacement to another place. Would that be correct?
So a couple of things here. So the costs that mainly made up the moving of the toilet from where it was and putting it in that pressure reserve too, there was quite a significant cost in consents in there, and resource consent, because it was in a floodable area. So that's cost that comes into play. So the $50,000 that have been assessed for uplifting that toilet and putting it to another site in the district, that just would require the cost of effectively, the physical cost of uplifting it, but also putting down a foundation, complying foundation, getting a consent, building consent for that, and connecting it to that assumption, as it says in the report, is made upon there being no need for a resource consent for where it would go to, which is a significant cost, and that it would be in near proximity to existing services, water, power, and sewer. That would reduce the cost as well.
Councillor Daly.
Look, I'm just looking at the minutes of the meeting where this came up and we approved the consultation, and I was under the understanding that we did approve a lessons learned review approach to this issue, the whole issue. And yet looking through the minutes, the motion that was carried doesn't actually refer to the lessons learned review. So I'm just wondering, can I just have clarification on that, please?
I think it might not be recorded as an action, Councillor Daly, but I gave a commitment at that meeting that the council didn't need to form a resolution, that I would undertake to get the lessons learned done. And that's what we've been doing. So it didn't need to be a formal resolution. I just committed to you that I would get it done.
Thanks for that, because I think, like Councillor Elvin said, this is quite important about what happens next in this vote. So anyway, I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks.
Like Councillor Beach, I'll dress up a statement as a question, if you don't mind. Was it not true that the petition from the residents heavily featured the cost of installation right from the get-go, and that was one of the major reasons why they managed to gain a number of signatures?
Sorry, Mayor James, I'm going to ask Peter not to really answer that. I think that's a bit more about debate.
I'll let it hang.
So have we any further questions? Anything you wish to clarify here? Councillor Daly.
Kylie, were you going to give us a summary of the consultation before we move to the next stage? Because I was going to ask a question about the consultation in terms of, I mean, we've had the distinguishment between engagement and consultation, and I just want to, from your point of view, would you consider that this consultation process that we've carried out as a result of the April meeting, that it satisfies all council considerations and maybe design parameters to ensure that we have got a thorough, robust consultation process that we've just been through?
Through the chair, like as we said before, all the information that we received through this community consultation is outlined in the council report. What I can say though, the main objectives and approach that was approved at the previous meeting was for us to be neutral, transparent, for all the information to date to be accessible for anyone that wants to make an informed decision on their feedback to this community consultation. And that included everything like previous media releases, minutes, outlining that there was a review done by the Friends of Precious Family Reserve, etc., etc. So we tried to make it as transparent as possible. Don't want to hide anything. Keep neutral ground. So from my professional opinion, we did everything on a neutral ground, gave all information as transparent as possible to everyone, featured through all our communications channels, and especially online through Facebook and social media. So yeah, I think we did what we were instructed to do with the approach that was approved by the elected members. Yes.
Councillor Alvin.
I don't really want to drop into the consultation, but it was a bit sanitized from my point of view. And I tried to have a look. And, you know, one thing that would have been important for me, had I been participating in that, is, you know, were you happy that a 17-year-old second-hand toilet was installed at Precious Reserve when you were originally indicated you were getting a brand new one? And I don't want to dwell there. I'm just interested in a response which says, are you really satisfied that all information was made available, that that meant that people were fully informed about the processes and the deficiencies from our perspective in the original placement of that toilet?
We have an answer to that question. I'm calling for an answer to that question.
And sorry, while you're following up on that, I just asked a procedural question: are we obliged to receive this report at all if we chose not to? And I just don't know procedurally whether we actually have to even accept it if we choose not to.
Mayor Denyer?
Well, my view would be voting not to receive a report is one of the most petty and stupid things council can do. And you can see what happens to TCC when they last tried that one and end up with commissioners. I think, you know, we have reports presented to us as councillors, and we receive them as a matter of form, and it would be foolish to try to argue the point there. There's plenty of time in debate to argue it. I will also answer your other question. This didn't actually need to be consulted on at all to install the toilet. That only happened because it was felt to be, you know, we were being thoughtful of the residents. And so the idea that you'd consult on how old the toilet you might want is, or what locking mechanism there might be, I mean, it's getting to an absurd level of detail. We, before my time, voted on a concept plan that was approved. Toilet could have gone straight in. Staff thought at the time that it was helpful just to check in on that, and that's how we ended up where we are. So I don't want to get too involved in, you know, what should be consulted on and what colour the doors are going to be. That's just not our role as governors, and we should stay away from that kind of stuff.
Any further questions? Okay, so basically, we do have a number of options and so on here, but I guess we call first of all for a, excuse me, councillor Alvin.
I'm quite happy to move option C. And no, sorry.
Point of order. I just thinking this through. I think where the chair was going was that we probably need to do recommendations one and two, get those out the way,
correct,
and then take them from there. But I would think whether the toilet stay or go is probably better than trying to work out relocation options, just as a matter of simplicity.
So that's where I was heading.
Option 1 and 2.
So moved, Councillor Deputy Mayor Murray Bench for options. A seconder. Okay, Councillor Daly, that's your seconder, all right. So we have those two motions to actually move through. So all those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Okay. Go. Now we open up for the rest of it. Do we have some motions here? Is there something someone wishes to move?
For form's sake, I'd like to move recommendation 3A.
So I just want to say that before you diverted the conversation, I had already suggested moving a motion.
Yes.
So
And I do acknowledge that Councillor Alvin did actually proceed there, just a little out of order, but that's where he proceeded first.
I mean, I'm happy to defer to the mayor's option, but I would have just foreshadowed that I would be, if that motion were to fail, I would be moving motion D, option D, foreshadowing, and also with an addition to that, which deals with how the toilet would be treated in the future, which is covered in the notice of motion that was put forward to revoke the Furlier decision and address how the future placement of a toilet at Precious Reserve was to be dealt with. So, I mean, I've got the proposed motion here. It's identical to the one pretty much in the original notice of motion, but
We're getting ahead of ourselves here, though.
yeah, we are getting ahead of ourselves. We are getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes, I'm afraid I do feel that we are jumping a little bit here. No, well, Councillor Alvin moved before him.
I think there's a motion on the table.
Okay.
So it's not a seconder at this stage.
Sorry. Councillor Alvin has decided or has agreed to defer or withdraw his nomination for it and deferred basically to the mayor's. Is that correct? So we are now moving to if the mayor wishes to actually represent his option.
Well, it's 3A. I guess you're looking for a seconder.
He is allowed to withdraw his option.
I've deferred to the mayor on the process. So
He's allowed to do so.
Just makes it cleaner in decision-making processes. That's all it is.
So, okay, we have a motion in front of us, and is there a seconder?
Could I ask a clarification?
Please do.
If we go with 3A at this stage and the motion recommendation fails, does that then mean that status quo is no longer an option?
I think
part of it, you need a positive vote for something.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's where staff will want to go. And yeah, that's where that's
basically just a point of order there to Councillor Daly. That is why I foreshadowed the subsequent motion that I was proposing to move, which is option D, which covers your exact concern, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, now we are still looking for a seconder for the mayor's motion. As it appears, we do not have a seconder. That does not proceed. Do we have any further? And I believe we've had foreshadowed another option? Councillor Alvin like to make it clear as to his options, please.
So yes, it's option D, that the toilet be removed and relocated to a different location. I'm not reading it word for word. But I'd also like to add to that the following, that the staff incorporate any future public toilet facility at Precious Family Reserve into the next annual plan or reserve management plan review, including assessment of alternative locations, statutory approvals, community engagement costs, and environmental effects. So the process here is to remove the toilet and take it somewhere else so that it's never seen again, yet recognise that there does need to be a toilet in Precious Reserve and we need to have a clean bill of health and start again. I'm happy to provide that so it's a little easier to read, hopefully. You got it.
So we have a motion before us, moved by Councillor Alvin and seconded by Deputy Mayor Murray Benge. Okay, so Councillor Alvin, would you like to speak to it in the first instance?
Yes, I would. Yeah, I think we've all found. I think we've all found this a really difficult, a difficult process, and I want to start from the outset by saying this has never been about a toilet for me. I've had concerns about, as an organisation, how this particular issue progressed from top to bottom. I remain really unhappy about that, and those sort of issues seem to be continuing in other areas. And I don't want to cover the ground that I previously spoke to. I just want to, as Sir Hansen said after one test, that we just need to flush this down the dunny and start again. And that's the reason for supporting this. I genuinely believe that how we present questions in consultations gives the desired answer that's set out in the first place. There are way too many issues around compliance, just the consultation process originally that deeply concerned me about this process. So that's my reason for wishing it to be removed. The second part of the motion is to recognise that there does need to be a toilet at Precious Reserve. It needs to be thought through. There are a number of alternatives about what toilet can be placed closer to the beach, not necessarily of a similar Exelou I think we've got at the moment. So I think it's incumbent on us to provide the community of Amakara the best possible outcome they can have.
Thank you. Right. Margaret Murray Benge. Okay, and now, so I move to Councillor Coxhead. No, actually, you were about. Sorry.
The first thing I want to say is congratulations to our staff. I think you have developed over the years a wonderful environment at Precious Reserve. And I look back, and when the Lions Club presented the seat, and it looked awful, the area between the seat and back up. But last year was a very lonely time for Councillor Ray and myself. We were on a hiding to nothing and nobody would support us, but the influence that we've had since then with Precious Reserve over and above all the time, going down there and talking to people like Mrs. Muller, making sure that Bradley is contacted early in the morning and that we get the ceiling right for Precious Reserve and Anderley Avenue connection, and it's good, and we've done that. But the only thing wrong is the old I just can't quite find the words to describe. An old dysfunctional dunny. And at that Anderley meeting, there were about 8 people there, and one man said, I just want a handle on the toilet, just like we've got down at Prole Road Reserve. It's simple. And what we've had since then is someone locked in that toilet. If it had been a child and could not get out, we would never, ever forgive ourselves. And it would be the Mount all over again. It's a dodgy old toilet, and I want it gone. That doesn't mean there is no need for a toilet, because there is. And one of the issues last year was listening to the debate about closer to the harbour edge. And so I've walked down there and I've taken a look. Tracy and I went one Sunday morning, and it's beautiful. And it is the ideal place for little children to learn to swim. On the Lions Club seat, there was a grandmother sitting and with a couple of friends, just relaxing in the sun. It's a beautiful place. And she said, everybody wants to take their children down there to swim, but the first thing they want to do is go to the toilet. And she said, and they said, if the toilet was just behind us, a perma-low that could be emptied out, we would have a very perfect environment for little children or older to learn to swim, and the teachers be able to see where they are, whereas they can't at the moment now because the toilet is too far away. So I have looked at this issue again and again, and I've talked to people, and I do know there is a need for a toilet, not denying that. But that dodgy old toilet, I don't care, it's now 17 or 18 or 19 years old, came from Island View, where they've got new toilets. Prole Road's got a decent new toilets. And Precious Reserve has got this old awful thing that's in the wrong place, and it needs to go. So I do not apologize for the fact that I think that the process we have used on this has been not acceptable to anybody, and the consultation was appallingly bad. We knocked out the survey that was done by 370 something people, and as though just knocked them out. And I said it would become an election issue, and it was. But here we've got an opportunity to forward plan for something decent for Precious Reserve, which they're entitled to, along with every other section of our community. So if it's good enough to do it at Island Bay or wherever it was, Island View, and we've got it down at Prole Road, and we're doing decent toilets everywhere else, please can we have a safe toilet, got rid of this awful one that we've got, and have a decent toilet that serves the whole of Precious Reserve users. That's my view, and I feel very strongly about it, sir. I think we've let people down. Worst of all, we've actually confused everybody, and everybody has got a view. In fact, they snigger when we say, talk about the toilet on Precious Reserve, and rightly so. But the background to it is something you cannot ignore. And so I think we've got an opportunity to fix it, and I support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Coxie.
I don't think there's much left to be said now, really. It's there. For me, I will be supporting the motion as well. It's about the process, and I was actually just trying to look back and see when we had the meeting on site. Was it a year ago or two? 25. Okay, yeah. So it's quite a long time ago, and it was a pretty clear message we got there. in terms of having, been consulted on it being near the boundary and then being moved into sort of more of a central position. And I felt like, that's when the first petition came about. I felt like we should have halted the process at that point, and I haven't really been comfortable ever since. And I know that the feedback from the community, if asked, do you want a toilet or not, and the cost and all the rest, as soon as we put cost in, and it's apparently it's on us, not you guys, then basically that's what people decide on. And I think that was a mistake looking back. Normally I would not swim against public opinion in such a large majority, but in this case, I think, the cost of 50,000 to remove it, I'm surprised it's that much. I don't have no idea why it would cost 50,000. However, spending any more time and on this is costing us as well. So, if the community has an issue with that, well, a lot of times being sucked up with this as well. So, realistically, we've probably, at least now it's going to be put to bed for a while anyway. So yes, it is going to come back and look at other locations that are more appropriate and work better for everybody, really. I think, potentially the site down the bottom of the beach there is actually a good one when you look at it. But again, it depends on how many people are down there to actually, use that beach as well. But anyway, I think, that probably sums it up. But yeah, it's just about the process for me.
Thank you. Mayor Denyer.
Thank you. You won't be surprised. I do not support removing this toilet. The overwhelming view of the public is to keep it, and to do anything else would show a huge disregard for public opinion and not be a prudent use of ratepayer money. The toilet is well used and valued by our community and should stay. The submissions have given us a clear message, and many express anger. This is even being relitigated. A typical response being absolutely disgusted and disappointed the current council are entertaining this. I live bordering the reserve. The toilet is well used, clean, and in a great location. There are more important things to spend our rates on. Another says the toilet is in a great location away from coastal inundation, accessible, and looks good. Another one was due process is followed, a decision was made, and expenditure committed. It is well away from the complainant's houses and is not a visual eyesore. Even the Moller family, whose memorial seat is nearby to the toilet, wish the facility to remain where it is. Councillors, this was not a difficult decision, but we have made it so. I'm concerned about how we've approached this whole thing, relitigating decisions made at the previous council meeting. While that is sometimes appropriate, when it comes to uninstalling infrastructure, it's just boneheaded. And I have real issues with this, and we're going to get a lot of pushback, and our reputation is going to suffer. So except I've lost this one, but there we are. I don't think this is going to work out well for us.
Councillor Beach.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be supporting Councillor Alvin's recommendations and his comments and his word. Since joining council, this has been a living, walking nightmare. Being a councillor out of the district, I even made jokes about this damn toilet and everything. It wasn't until I went along with my fellow Eastern councillor, Delhi, and had a look at it. And the first vision I had of it was, man, we got this so wrong, it's not funny. Even to the fact that, so-called grassing and plantings were done to try to hide or discourage where it was. But there's no two ways about it. It was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I took on board when I make my decision, I took on the petition that was brought forward and also the survey to make where I am standing today on this resolution. Unfortunately, there is no winners in this game. There is going to be some sadness, but at the end of the day, I do agree there needs to be a toilet there, but it needs to be done properly. It needs to be done with a blank sheet saying, this is where it's going to go and this is for the right reasons. So hence my decisions here. So thank you.
Have we any more speakers? Councillor Daly.
Normally I
agree with the people that are voting for this motion. Most of the time, I think we've got an alignment that I appreciate. This issue, I just can't ignore what's happening here. You know, the community consultation, I believe, is conclusive. 80%. The comments are damning already in terms of the fact that we're relitigating this issue. I'm really disappointed that the argument about process is taking precedence when we clearly had an undertaking from our group manager of infrastructure to take out a lessons learned review, which we've heard is well underway. And I believe that should have been sufficient to put this issue to bed. The fact that councillors want to take this step to remove it or relocate it at a cost of $50,000, it's not just $50,000, they're also wanting a new one bought back, a brand new one, not a dodgy old second-hand one. I mean, we've heard it's been fully reconditioned. The electronics have been replaced. It's not a dodgy old toilet. I mean, I know multiple locations in my ward that would love to have a toilet like this to replace some of the aging infrastructure that we have down there. Commerce Lane toilets, for example, we've been asking for 15 years to have that upgraded and replaced, and falls on deaf ears when it comes back to council. We're talking about a $500,000 proposal a few years ago, and that was considered too much. We're going to be approaching $500,000 for this precious reserve toilet by the time we're finished with it. So I think it's been claimed this was going to be an election issue. Maybe it was, maybe the three Aotearoa councillors were elected on this issue. I don't know. I certainly hope not. But I think you're going to certainly find it may not be an election, may have been an election issue, but you're going to find it's going to be a social media issue in the next few days and weeks, because the community is just going to be so angry about what you're about to do. The jokes will turn to public abuse. Ken Holyoake, member of the Aotearoa Community Board, Golf Club, told us this morning that the walkway gets hundreds of users from all demographics, mothers and children, grandparents and their grandkids. It's just absolutely phenomenal asset, that walkway. And this is the only public toilet on that walkway. The consultation responses indicate that the toilet is a much needed asset. It's very much appreciated. And to put this, to make this an issue on principle, when there's a clear and present need for it to satisfy holes or issues with the process, I really struggle with this one. And you know, I don't want to burn any bridges with my fellow councillors, but this one just beggars belief for me. So I'll be voting against it.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Well, I'll speak myself then. Sorry. Yes, you will. I also look at this, and I still again remember the television program Closhmel and all the rubbish that went on with it and so on. To me, there's a few things here that I still feel that we've got to change what happens. And okay, we've got a report coming, but somewhere along the line, things have got to change. We've got to start doing things better and making. You'll never please 100% of the people all the time, but you can make better decisions than what we wound up with here. To me, it's like building a railway station on the top of the Kaimais. What's it for? What's it going to do? So the toilet is in a place where it does get used. Obviously, somebody got locked in it, and so on. So that's the case. But I do actually question its location. I didn't for a long time till I went down and really had a look from the other end. And there are lots of reasons why I I feel we really blew it. The comments about the toilet being old, dodgy. Only bit was dodgy, to be honest, is that we didn't again do our job as the manufacturer's recommendations are, by all accounts, that we should service those things every year. If that's, as I understood, was placed before us in the last meeting. So, and regardless of what they were, that's an issue we have. The toilet wouldn't have been available if it wasn't for the need to upgrade the ones. It was increase the number at the former site. It wasn't to get rid of it or to just put a new one in there. So I actually do argue against that. I'm sorry. The toilet has been upgraded. We've been told that it's potentially got another 30 years. So, you know, I don't like that argument, but I think we've got to be realistic about it. That toilet was and is quite serviceable, and whatever, and by the look of it, it's going to move from where it is now, and it will go somewhere else. Unless, of course, you're condoning that it, or condemning it. So you condone not using it anywhere else and we just destroy it. I guess you can try selling it. So to me, we basically have got a situation where we've got to be better at what we do at trying to get it right the first time. Really look at it and come to agreement with where it should be as best you can. You can't, again, please everybody all the time. So actually, I will support this motion and we will move from there. That's my statement, sir. So now you're right to reply.
Look, thanks everybody. I think when this last debate came up, I mentioned that I'd had an engagement even before I was elected from someone saying, what was I going to do with the precious reserve toilet? And I said, that decision was made last term, don't bother with me with it, really. And it was my stance. Unfortunately, the further I looked at it, ended the worst position got for me. And I know from a council perspective, we're in a no-win position. And because there's always that balance between principle and pragmatism that we're facing here. And I take Councillor Daly's point about being attacked on social media. Don't spend much time on there. I got attacked by former Councillor Don Thwaites, and that didn't scare me. So not much else is really going to scare me. So, you know, I'll face that when it comes. But for me, it's that balance between, as an organisation, what level of excellence are we going to demand of ourselves? And at what point do we simply say, well, we've done a bad job here, but we're just going to brush it under the carpet and run because of the cost? And I guess for me, this issue reached that tipping point. And it's as simple as that. It just reached that tipping point. And look, we've talked about culture. It's something I campaigned on, that we need to change the culture of this place. And I think it is changing. And that's really good. I'm seeing a real change. And this is a historical issue. But we've still got a few issues that we are not engaging properly with our public. We're not taking them with us. You know, I want to talk about a bund, and I want to talk about a playground issue that I think we've done a poor job on there too. And we've just got to lift our standards. And if we cannot demand excellence of ourselves in how we do things, then we have no rights to demand very much from our community. And I'm not saying we always get things right, but when we get it wrong, we own it. And this is all of us round this table are accepting that. It's not a blame game. It's just saying, I think we got this one right. We need to own that we got it right. There is a cost in acknowledging we got it wrong. Let's tidy it up and move on.
Thank you. That's the reply. Can I ask, would you be able to, the actual new motion is up in there on the screen, but would you be able to read it for us, please, just so that they're clear, because it's not necessarily that easy for some to read.
Through the chair. So we've got 3D, which is now moved to 3A just for numbering purposes, that toilet facility be removed from Precious Family Reserve and relocated to a different site elsewhere in the district, and recommends a budget of $50,000 be funded from rates reserve account in the 2026-27 financial year to accommodate this, and directs the chief executive to incorporate any future public toilet facility at Precious Family Reserve into the next annual plan or reserve management plan review, including assessment of alternative locations, statutory approvals, community engagement costs, and environmental effects. Is that everything included in there for you, Councillor Alvin?
Yes, it is,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I've just, Mr. Watson's got to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to help as a suggestion, it's got an or in there, so it's not giving real clear direction to us. My suggestion is, being what this community council and everyone's been through, is that it's probably the reserve management plan is probably the next best place to review that and let time heal a few things. Otherwise, we're straight into this annual plan coming up and going through this process straight away again. I just want to give that option. So it's just it's having the or in there leaves it a little bit ambiguous which one you want us to do.
Councillor Alvin?
Happy to change it to an and.
One comes before the other.
Look, I don't, what I want is a resolution here that works, that delivers the speediest outcome for the people at Omakura to have this revisited and a new toilet there. And I guess I'd expect that the old one would stay there for as long as it takes to get the new one in place. I don't know, but I just want to make sure that we're sending a clear signal that we need to sort this out straight away. Now, Peter, I accept the fact that you know more about the process than me, so I just want words that say this is going to be done as quickly as it can be. And if that means the annual plan.
I take Peter's point, and maybe this annual plan is possibly soon, but too soon, but the next KMI RMP is in what, 7 or 8 years? So that may be too long.
Yes.
There might be something in between. Can I suggest it's a chief executive discretion at an appropriate moment or something like that? Because I don't want to hoof it out for 8 years, but I'm also conscious that trying to do it in the next few months might be unhelpful.
Councillor Joyce. Sorry, I didn't see you.
That's right. I'm just wanted to check a question from Councillor Alvin's last comment that he expected the toilet would stay there until a decision is made on its replacement and a replacement's put in place. I don't read that from the motion.
That's right. It's only a suggestion. I'm not going to die in the ditch about it.
Well, I mean, yeah, I just think we just need to be clear what we're voting on. Are we voting to remove it now and then look to future options, or are we voting to look at future options and remove it when with those, when we have a replacement in place? Because those are two quite different scenarios.
I think we have a motion in front of us. Councillor Alvin, again, you wish to?
I'd like to know what staff interpret it as, because the other one's going to carry this out.
Councillor Joyce, I think that the way that we would interpret what is written as 3A, is that what we're looking at? 3A on the screen at the moment is that the toilet facility be removed and relocated. So that is what we would do. The part B is a separate thing, which is a future toilet. So what we would be doing now is removing the toilet and relocating it elsewhere in the district. And then part B is something that we would do in the future, either through, as is written there, through the annual plan or the reserve management plan about a new toilet. So my reading of that would be that the toilet would go away now, and then through the annual plan or reserve management plan, we would be looking to install a new toilet.
So there'd be a period of time when there's no toilet there.
correct as I would understand it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, are we firm now? Are we understanding the resolution that we have in front of us and that we're about to vote on? I don't believe Councillor Alvin has any change that he wishes to make, or?
Yeah, without stuffing the process up completely, I'm mindful of Mayor James's comment to try and have this facilitated as quickly as we can in terms of B. If there is better words to give effect to what I think most of us want, is that a new toilet be at Precious Reserve as soon as we can. I would like a resolution that reflects that, and I need some help from staff as to how we would best achieve that. And then I have to amend it accordingly with the support of my seconder. It's just a matter of saying, how do we get it done as quick as we can? And
okay, Brad has asked whether he'd be able to have 5 minutes just to go through that. I would be really appreciative of us coming to an end with this process soon, but that would be great. So 5-minute recess. Next, please.
Councillors, so the proposal that is up on the screen at the moment is the intention of what Councillor Alvin is wanting to achieve. That through the long-term plan, we secure funding to put in a new toilet at Precious Reserve. That subsequent to the long-term plan being adopted, in 2027-28, we bring back a project proposal back to PNM that covers the alternate locations looked at, statutory approvals, community engagement, costs, environmental effects. And once that's adopted and approved, that project proposal, that then the toilet facility at Precious Reserve will be relocated to somewhere else in the district.
Can I ask, in the meantime, those rubbishy shrubs will come out, won't they? At no cost to the community. The husband was sitting over there this morning. at the
So
golf-
point of order, I think we've got a point of putting the motion.
Yeah, I think we're going into too deep here. I think in fairness, it's quite a logical option to do that, but we don't need, we're concentrating on this in front of us now.
Well, my question is to Bradley.
Point of orders, we're not at the point of questions, we're point of putting the motion. Right of reply has been given and you need to put the motion.
I have a hand up from Councillor Joyce.
Sorry, I think we should take questions because the motion has changed quite substantially. I mean, my question would be, does this mean the existing toilet stays there for some years and while the A and B are completed?
Continue.
So my question is, if the toilet is staying there until we get the new one put in place, could the shrubs that are so not suitable for that park be now removed? As you told me, until the consultation was over, you would not give that approval.
Yeah, I think in terms of removing those shrubs, we would. I think what you're facing here, councillors, is the exact same situation that you've been facing with the toilet, is that if we remove the shrubs, there could be people that would prefer that it's there. So if you want us to undertake removal of those plantings now, then that can be incorporated into this as a direction that's what you want us to do. Otherwise, we would cover it off in that 2027, 2028 project proposal and bring it back as part of the project proposal.
If the mover was agreeable, I would like that included because that open space is really important and the volunteers are all ready to shift every plant from there. It is most unpopular and I think it would be sensible to do it now and they would actually get on with the job and you've got the golf club ready to have any surplus. But Jackie, whose husband was here this morning from the golf club, she is the environmental person at Amakoroa and keen to remove them.
Bradley.
Just reflecting on what I've just said, an alternate for council, instead of messing with the resolutions that are written up there, is to just assign us an action. We minute an action for staff. And if that's your action that you're directing us to do, then we can go away and do that if it's a unanimous action.
Thank you. I think that's the case. I want to see this thing come to an end very soon, whichever way. Okay, Peter.
If the committee would allow me, just as the officer is going to get the minute action sheet, when I look at that, that C says that upon conclusion of this process, the existing toilet at Precious Reserve can be relocated. But the process is at item B, and there's still no clear outcome of that process. So what I'd suggest is that if the outcome of process B is to have a new toilet elsewhere, then that should be the conclusive point before the other one gets moved. Can you see what I'm saying? And from a practical, physical perspective, you can go through that process, do initiatives and options, and we do the assessment, and like we've done that, now go move the toilet. But your process might say, we're not even going to do it at all, or we're putting it somewhere else. So it's just I'm looking for something practical to complete there.
You wish to say something, councillor? Hill?
Well, I just want to ask a question because we
As
did.
per item 3B above, yeah. Return location as a result of item 3B above, then the toilet gets removed. That would give us a bit more clearer direction.
We did have a recommendation 4, which was subsequent on option 3A being adopted, but it seems like it does address the concerns that have been raised about the landscaping.
I think you've already now taken care of that issue. Is that the case here with the?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I think that the process here is that this is a very carefully worded resolution that takes account of the issues we've got, and I thank you for the staff in assisting in refining my resolution, and I hope that I get the support from Deputy Mayor, but it does deal with the issues we need to hear from my perspective.
Graham, could I ask, could we put citing, direct the chief executive to incorporate the siting of a future public toilet facility at Precious Reserve in the long-term plan?
Doesn't including assessment of alternative locations and B deal with that?
The intention is pretty clear. Look, I think we've got to come to an end of this, guys. Hang on. Aaron. Oh, Rodney, sorry.
Sorry, I don't want to prolong this either, but I'm just wondering whether C captures what Councillor Alban was looking for. I thought it was that upon the installation of a new toilet, so you don't have a break in service. Is that what you meant, Graham? That upon the installation of a new toilet, because I mean the approval of a new toilet installation is just a council resolution, right? But it could be, I'm not sure what the intention here. If the intention here is continue toilet service, until we don't have a break in service, then it should really be that upon the installation of a new toilet, the existing and so on.
Yeah, I think, Rodney, I think I kind of hope that we had enough grit and will in the organisation to make sure those are connected together, but that's fine. I was assuming that we'll get it approved, we'd get the process underway, and one would go and the other would go out at the same time. So that makes it absolutely clear.
Oh, thank you.
So
I just think with this one, we need to be absolutely clear.
I think you're probably right, Rodney.
Okay, so there's. Okay, are we comfy here now, councillors? Right, we have a motion in front of us. Moved by Councillor Alvan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Murray Bench. It is what's in front of us. It's 3A, B and C. I will put it to the vote then. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary. Two would like it recorded, I'm sure. Oh, sorry, and are you abstaining or voting, Rodney? Sorry.
I think I'll abstain on this one too. It's unusual for me, but I will today.
Thank you. Okay, well, it still hasn't quite put it all to bed yet because whatever, but thank you guys. It was a lot quicker than the last time we were sitting in this room discussing this toilet. And I do appreciate that. I think now what we'll do is move to our confidential session, and then we'll break for lunch. So is somebody prepared to move that we go into confidential? Moved by Deputy Mayor Murray Benj, seconded by Councillor Coxhead. All those in favour, please say aye.